Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the 247th edition of the Boxing Asylum Nuthouse podcast. I'm your host, Steve Wellings, and joining me on the panel this evening, we have Adam Smido Smith, Dave the Hater Lowback, Donny Baseball, Andy Patterson, Gabe Lewis, and Matty DiGialinardo. Welcome to you all, gentlemen. We were going to start with Groves and Cox, but I think we're going to start with the PBC card now, considering we are top heavy with our American correspondents. And no messing about. Matty, let's get straight in with you. Jarrett Hurd against Austin Trout, Jamel Charlo knocking out Erickson Lubin, Erislandy Lara. We think nobody seems to have watched till the 12th round, beat Terrell Gautier. We'll assume that he did over 12 rounds, points decision. Start me off with Charlo, Matty, if you can. Knocked out Erickson Lubin in a round. Really impressive performance, impressive finish. Lubin was just out of there.
That was unexpected, to say the least. You know, I mean, I had always thought that people were hyping up Lubin more so than what I saw in the ring. You know, it was such a quick shot. It's almost like I don't know if I was right. He's a little bit chinny, but that was a nice shot that Charlo landed on him. You know, I mean, Lubin ducked down and Charlo came up with a punch, and the combined force of the two made, what looked like a nothing shot just sent him straight to the floor. I mean, he was on the ground on his side, and it looked like he was trying to box for a minute while he was on his side or something. He finally got his bearings, but the ref had already waved it off. These Charlo brothers, there's something different about them over the last 12 to 18 months. Sometimes they can be quite boring, but these kids are not screwing around anymore. They're in there to make a statement, and I really, really am looking forward to. I can never remember Jamal or but whatever Charlo we saw last night against Hurd, that's a great fight. It sounds like nobody's really trying to stop that from happening either. So we got something special coming up, I think.
Tell me about Hurd's performance while you're on roll there, Matty, against Austin Trout. Do you think Trout just paid the price for being too inactive over the last 18 months or so?
It could be that. I really was impressed with Austin through the first 5 rounds, and I've always been a big Trout fan. I picked him to beat Cotto. That was always a feather in my cap. And Austin he's a solid fighter. He really is, and he went in there throwing hard shots, but moving well out of range. But what he had to do to fight that fight was expend a whole lot of energy. He was throwing in high volume. He was more mobile than he usually is, choosing to move rather than sit in the pocket. And Hurd was getting just clobbered. But around the midway point of the fight, he just started taking it to Trout, and he was able to start cornering him, and he landed some big shots. There's something about Hurd in that ring where he just looks huge. I mean, he's a big dude. And, Austin never even went down, but, I mean, just took punishment for, 5 solid rounds, basically. And the doctor said he'd seen enough after the 10th, basically. And you got to give Hurd some credit. Against Harrison, same thing. Early on, getting tagged, having it real rough. But he's got a good beard because he took some shots. He took some hellacious shots. And he was still able to stay in there. And the kid has a tenacity to him, and that's one of those intangibles you really don't know how far it can take him. He's got a really good beard, but I don't think he wants to take those shots from Charlo. Taking them from Austin Trout's a different story. I credit Trout for being a bit of a better puncher than most would say, but these Charlo brothers, they can bang, and if I was Hurd, I wouldn't be trying to walk him down.
Yes, Mido, these Charlo brothers certainly can bang. That's 4 knockouts in a row now for Jamel. He got rid of Charles Hatley in his last one. We can look at Lubin's record. He's a young guy. I think he's about 22. Smido, 18-0. We could say lack of experience, but is it just one of those things, experience or not? You catch a shot like that on the chin that you don't see coming and you're just out of there?
Oh, it was the definition of just getting caught cold, to be honest. And as Matty said, it was the perfect combination of the punch landing absolutely flush, right on the button. He just got short-circuited straight away. He was twitching like Fernando Montiel. It looked real bad. But within even within the 10 count, Lubin was actually trying to get to his feet. Obviously, he was extremely unsteady, and obviously the fight couldn't go any further. But within a couple of minutes, he was sat on his stool, just to take in the L, really. Yeah, and he had his senses back. But like you say, as he's kind of ducked down, it's just been the perfect storm for Charlo's right hand, whatever you want to call it, was a uppercut or a hook, or probably an intended body shot, to be fair. But yeah, they're building up some highlight reel knockouts between them, the brothers. It helps me that they're fighting at different weights now, because that helps me identify between the two of them. But yeah, Lubin's just been caught absolutely cold. And I think probably he will come back from that. Maybe he's going to be scarred mentally by it. I think anyone kind of would. It's a bit like Amir Khan back in the day. But yeah, it'll be good. Lubin's only young, so it'll be good to see him coming back. And I think that I made a confident pick on Lubin last week, so it really makes me feel like I know what I'm doing. Steve, I feel like a hardcore for the first time in months, if not the first time this year. I've been watching fights Friday. I've watched 5 world title fights, well, 6 if you include George Groves. I've watched John Ryder on a stream. I've watched Sam Sheedy on a Friday night getting blasted. I'm a hardcore, mate.
Well, Smitho, you said that you dropped a bit of an L with the Lubin prediction, but I believe me and you were Team Jarrett Hurd late stoppage last week. How do you think a Hurd Charlo fight would go? That's what you want to see next, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Just on the Hurd fight last night, I really enjoyed that. Hats off to Austin Trout. He's put a fantastic effort in there. He clearly was winning some of the early rounds, probably 4 of the first 6 on mine. But then there was a sense of inevitability about it. Hurd was just taking the shots that Trout was offering. He's a much bigger dude, as Matty said, and there was just, like I say, a sense of inevitability about it. Trout was starting to get busted up. His face was swelled, but he was still going for it. I mean, how he managed to get to the 10th round is an achievement. I tweeted earlier, Trout's got the best and worst jelly legs in the game, because as Canelo did a few years ago, when you touch him on them whiskers, he looks like Bambi instantly. And we had that, I think, in the 6th, 7th, maybe again in the 9th. Obviously, in the 10th, it was called off at the end of the 10th. So my thinking was Hurd should have probably got him out there a little bit earlier, to be honest. But hats off to Trout. Hats off to Trout. I think that Charlo would beat Hurd, and my reason is that I think he's quite a lot faster, and he throws straighter punches. I think he's going to beat Hurd to the punch regularly. And I think that'll be the difference there. But yeah, that's the fight we want to see. We should see it now. They're on the same schedule in terms of they fought on the same night. They both appear to want it. So let's get that one on.
Yeah, Gabe, he's a big dude, isn't he? This Jarrett Hurd, he's a sizable guy. He swaggers around the ring rather than walks into range. He keeps on swaggering. He's like, I'm going to catch you, I'm going to knock you out. That's the way he looks to me. But fair play to Austin Trout, Gabe. He took his licks like a man, but he sat in the corner and he just looked dejected. He looked beaten. I don't disagree with the doctor and corner's combination stoppage, to be honest with you. But as for Hurd, I think he's one of these big punchers, Gabe. He clubs you, he hits you with hard, stinging shots round after round, and he just wears you down.
Yeah, I think so. I thought Trout was phenomenal last night in the early, in the early part of the fight. The first 6 rounds, I thought he was in control at the time of the stoppage. By the way, I had it scored, which I can see if you flip 2 rounds in there. I think it was round. I know it was one of them was round 3, and I can't remember the other one was 5 or 6 now. But if you flip those 2 around, then you have a pretty similar score to what the judges had. But I thought he was in control for the early part of the fight, but then he just kind of got worn out and he couldn't take the punches like he was early. He just kind of lost his legs, so to speak. I really enjoyed watching him last night. But Hurd is just massive. I mean, he's a huge dude, and then you could see every time he landed a clean shot, it wasn't very much fun for Trout. So, and I think it would be a great fight to see him fight Lara and see somebody that can take some punches, walking that guy down and trying to blast him out like he did to Trout, because Lara's not going to throw the same amount of punches and be as active If he can, if his trainers are aware, and if somebody will help him work on cutting the ring down a little bit, then it might be a great fight to see. Hurd looked great when he started walking them down and actually, using his size. But the size aside, he really wasn't. When he was trying to be more tactful early on, he was getting beaten. And he's got a ways to go. He's still a young guy, but he's freaking huge. Now, if he steps up a weight class or he fights somebody that's a little bit bigger puncher like Charlo, if he takes the shots that he took last night, he's going out like a lot at some point. But he made it through last night. Fair play to both fighters. Great fight.
Hey, to Dave Loback. I was looking at the purses earlier. Charlo got $450,000 for nearly 3 minutes work. Lubin got $225,000 for nearly 3 minutes work. That's the type of purses that you're earning at the moment.
No, I do way better than that.
You don't go to bed for that much money, you cunt.
I mean, it's at least more reasonable. It's at least more reasonable than what he's been paying, like Robert Guerrero, like $1 million to fight like a journeyman at best. So maybe Al's just been forced to cut back, or maybe it's just because these guys are at 154. I think we've been hating on, well, not me, but you guys, a lot of you, not all of you, have been hating on the 154-pound division forever. You can't tell the guys apart. You can't get it up for any of the fights. I like it. I think last night showed why.
Lara, how long did you last with that fight?
I watched the whole thing, all 12 rounds. But as Mauro Ranallo said, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. We had two good fights. I mean, the knockout wasn't exactly a good fight, but it was an impressive finish, and you can't really complain about it. And even better than that, the guys are willing to fight each other. They all, Hurd and Charlo were both up for them to going head to head next, which would be great, I think. Although I also agree with Gabe. I think that Black Margarito, Jared Hurd's style would be very interesting against Lara, because I think he could possibly pull something off like Angulo did coming forward, making the fight a lot more interesting than Terrell Gaucher managed to do. I really wish that these two brothers would change their hair up or something, change their style, make maybe one of them like cut his face open so he has like a cool scar, just something to differentiate the two, because it would put an end to my nagging conspiracy theory that Jermel's doing the weighing in, Jamal's doing the fighting. Because I always thought Jamal was better. He's the guy with the power. He's the guy, and Jermel was sort of the more technical, more of a mover. But now we've had 2 highlight reel knockouts from Jermel, the younger, well, not the younger, the smaller brother. And
I think he's younger by 12 minutes, Dave.
Same hairdo, by the way. They should get ball fucked for that last night. You see that?
I think I noticed that Jermel had like a goatee and Jermal was clean shaven. I believe that's the difference I noticed last night. So there might be something to grab onto there at least. But yeah,
I've got one. Him that fought last night had the kind of tribal tattoos on each shoulder or down the arm, so we need to have our tops off to fucking differentiate. And I don't know if the other brothers got anything like that. They see they have got the tattoos on, both of them. Something's fucking far wrong.
And Jermel, well, I mean, who knows? They could just give him one of those temporary tattoos on fight night so that he could pose as his brother and get the emphatic knockout win. I always thought Jermel was weak. I see either 3 possibilities. Either he's making some massive improvements and stepping it up in the gym. His brother's fighting for him, or he's on the gear. Because it's really shocking how Jermel has started to be this beast all of a sudden against Hatley and now against Lubin. Lubin did look a little bit chinny to me.
He's Vada enrolled. He's in with Vada though, so he must be clean to some sort of degree.
Vada? Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Well,
WBC champion, see.
It's hard work and dedication, Dave. Let's just call it what it is.
Yeah, I guess so. I'm happy to have these American stars, honestly. You know, well, it's going to be hard to tell the Charlo brother versus Hurd apart because they've got the same hairstyle too. But once you see them fight, I mean, the styles are completely different, so it'll be pretty quick to figure that out. But I think Charlo wins that fight. You can't keep going on like this, I don't think. You're going to have a short career taking these kind of shots. This is the second fight in a row that Hurd's won now just by walking forward and wearing his opponent out. And he took a lot more last night against Trout than he had to do against Harrison. Harrison's got a worse tank, worse skills, worse pretty much everything than Austin Trout. And Hurd was able to take less punishment and actually look like a little bit more of a boxer against Harrison. But last night he looked like just a big punching bag walking around. His fundamentals are seemingly non-existent. I don't know if he fought this fight in a particularly strange style just to because that was his game plan all along, to wear Trout down, but that's what he did and it worked. So you can't really fault him for it ultimately, other than that he took way too much punishment, I think.
Yeah, I did laugh at Paul Smith on the commentary. He said something about Hurd, I think it was about round 7 or what. He can't just keep his hands up and keep marching forwards. You know, this is coming from Smigger and a Joe Gallagher fighter. Like, you can't just do that, Dave.
Yeah, maybe Joe Gallagher should be his new trainer. I mean, there's been a lot of talk about, because Hurd is this really good athletic specimen with all this talent and fantastic engine, apparently, a good chin, good punch. There's been a lot of talk about him getting a new trainer because his skills are disappointing. How about Joe Gallagher?
Fuck
Well,
that. Phelps Jr.
Yeah, well, I suppose, Matty. I mean, Joe could come over to America now that Eddie's starting to take over. We could see, you know, the new Kronk opening up. Anybody happy to hear that?
I am. I'm Team Eddie in this fight. Anyone who pisses off Dirty Dick Schaefer and has him like grumbling about Eddie ringside, I mean, I'm going to be rooting for Eddie in that fight. Eddie never tried to steal a guy's company while enabling his substance abuse. Eddie at least is sort of an underdog in this matchup, so I'm Team Eddie against Dick and Heyman.
Fucking die.
Dave's Team Eddie. Donnie, we're going to be coming to you very shortly on the ringside beef. Before we do so, Andy, I'm going to ask you a question from the Box Bet Beast, one of our friends. He says, the Charlos have always been skilled, but in the last 18 months, they've both become murderous punchers. Is it wrong to be suspicious about where they're getting their bread and water from?
Well, I think we've all been kind of insinuating that. I just think, well, especially when it fought last night, as I says, he's Vada and rolled out. To me, that is a gold standard drug testing that's available at the minute. So I think we've got to kind of basically say that he is clean. It might be just doing to change his technique. He has been in with some kind of like toughish guys. Just maybe the fact that these guys he's fighting are just not got the strongest chins. You know, at the end of the day, Lubin was only, as we said like this last week, Lubin was 18-0, 19-0, whatever it was. Never really been tested. At least Charlo had been with likes of Rosado and Mata-Rosen for how good they are, but at least they're generally kind of like game and tough and going to carry a few rounds and stuff. Lubin never really had that kind of acid test, so you know, I had to kind of watch it back 3 or 4 times to kind of try and catch the actual shot, but it was a kind of sneaky right uppercut, kind of right hook that you kind of hit him with. Is he on the drugs? Anybody who's listened to me or on this podcast that knows, you know, my points of view on these fighters and most sports and stuff like that. I think you need to be an absolute idiot if you're not on the fucking gear nowadays, because the rewards are so fucking huge. And as I say, you know, we've said it before, Victor Conte says it's no drug testing anymore, it's IQ testing. So, but if every drug test is getting hit with the CIR testing, which is like something like, I think it's like 40 grand a head, we should be kind of basically kind of, you know, weeding out the cheats, and everybody should be involved in this.
And possibly Charlo against Hurd. Judge their respective performances for us, Andy, like the guys have done.
Hurd, I don't really rate his ceiling actually whatsoever, because if he kind of keeps fighting like that, especially against kind of better guys, I thought Trout kind of gassed out within 5-6 rounds and stuff, and he was, you know, in the end, Hurd really just kind of broke his will a little bit. So, especially the way he fights kind of square on. I think, like I said, Charlo, I think he would probably light him up, maybe stop him around about 6 or 7 rounds. One thing about the guy is he will come forward and he will definitely kind of try and dig in and try and kind of break it, but he's I don't know, I'm not really kind of sold on Hurd. You know, as I say, the guy's tough. I'm not going to mention Lara whatsoever. I watched that for 6 rounds, and just like the guys in the arena, I actually got up and walked to him. It was absolutely awful. I seen the 3rd round knockdown. That was about it. But Trout, on the other hand, I don't know if he's got a problem with the weight. As I say, he kind of gassed after 5 or 6 rounds. I think he maybe needs to move up. He was outboxed him for the first 3-4 rounds. I don't know whether that kind of like constant movement was actually because of the pressure, but I heard made him gas out because I didn't think it'd be interesting if it kind of like if Trout kind of like basically kept it going. But in the end, you could see it. He was getting badly marked up, and you got to give that corner an absolute fucking boot in the bollocks. Where was the end swell there last night for that right eye? That was absolutely horrendous. Just it was like Mike Tyson back in Tokyo, wasn't it? Just putting a Johnny bag full of ice in it and just stick it on that eye. Where's the end swell to try and get that swelling and give a guy a chance? The guy's a southpaw. He's losing his fucking lead eye, for Christ's sake. But the way it was going, I think in the end it was the right call. The guy wasn't going to kind of turn the tide, so to speak. I don't know if he was. I think he was leading on all 3 scorecards and that, but he had nothing left. If you've got nothing left, you're just going to get, you're going to get badly hurt. You're going to get badly knocked out, and maybe even end your career. So probably the right call by the corner there.
The right call, says Andy. Donny, the box bet beast added in, by the way, about Charlo. Suspicions aside, with this newfound devastating power on top of what they already had, I believe they will clean up at 154 and 160 respectively. I include Hurd, Lara, Canelo, Triple G and Jacobs in that, bold as it may sound. Donny, I mentioned before about a bit of beef at ringside. We had a bit of trouble at the Groves-Cox fight, which we'll go to later. Quite a few questions on that, actually. And also, I think there was a mild disturbance where Chris Avalos' brother tried to get at the referee after he was stopped against Leo Santa Cruz. But a bit of a ruckus at ringside, Donny, involving Erickson Lubin's people and Jamal Charlo. A chair was being thrown. Any word on that?
No, I don't know anything about it. I mean, I know that at the weigh-in they were seemingly like pretty adversarial, but no, I'm not really very well familiar with that. No.
Tell us what happened in the ring, then, Donny. That's where your expertise lies.
Well, I don't know about that, but but anyways, no. I mean, I don't know what else I can add. Honestly, beyond what's been said, just that that I think. Lara, to me, is still the best fighter in that division. He may not have been the guy that brought us the most excitement last night, but it's just clear that his counterpunching ability is as good as it ever was. And he may be getting on there in years. I think he's 34, going on 35. But I mean, as good as the Charlo brothers look and everything, and Hurd looks exciting, but I don't think anyone's going to dethrone Lara. And if those guys want to fight him, I don't think they're going to win, and as long as the fight happens within a reasonable length of time. Even though it wasn't the most, like I said, exciting performance, I'm just impressed that the guy is still able to do what he does, and to do it as proficiently as ever.
Overall, Donny, putting the 3 fights together on this card on the PBC, impressed, excited? Was it what you expected? Better, worse?
I think it was definitely more exciting than expected. Like people were saying, Jermell, ELL, is not supposed to be the puncher, yet he's stringing together knockouts. And so, and certainly a first round knockout is always an emphatic statement. Especially when it comes against somebody who actually I had picked, and I think a lot of other people, including yourself, had picked. So, and then the Trout Hurd fight ended up being a war. I thought Trout would probably box him a little bit more, and early on he did, but eventually, he started really slugging it out with him. Probably because, like everybody was saying, he did gas out, and so. He was forced to go a little bit more toe-to-toe. And in those middle rounds where he was still winning the rounds, but, when he was starting to fight with him, I could sense the tide was turning right there because, Austin Trout is not a slugger. That's just, putting somebody out of there with power is not something that he's really capable of. So I was like, well, it's toe-to-toe and it's thrilling, but this isn't Trout's fight. And sure enough, the tide did turn against him. But, he's winding down a little bit too, I guess it seems. He's had a good career. He's been in there with, everybody of note at that division. maybe he, ironically, the reason why he may have been a little bit slow in his gas tank was because of the inactivity for a while. But at the same time, now he may need a little time off because of the beating that his face took last night. And I echo Andy on the end swell there. That was pretty stupid. They maybe had a chance to, he was only down 2 points on the 2 of the 3 scorecards, and so he might have had a chance to get into those last 2 rounds if the guy could see, but his lead eye was nearly closed because they didn't bring the proper materials. That has to be annoying. When you pay these cornermen, take a percentage of your purse, and how stupid do you have to be not to come prepared to give your man every chance to win? So that was annoying, but otherwise, Hurd looks good, and yeah, I mean, he definitely has some defensive flaws, big time, and he's going to have to work on that, to say the least. He even said, I guess his beard is so good that he even said at the end of the fight, he goes, well, after I got cut, I felt like I moved my head a little bit more. So it's like apparently he didn't mind taking punches before he got cut. So I don't know. Maybe he should get cut every fight. I don't know, but in all, yeah, he seems like a character. I like him, and for as long as that lasts, I think it'll be enjoyable.
Go ahead, Hayter.
On that activity, well, we can thank inactivity. We can thank Al Heyman for that. So fuck Al Heyman for screwing Trout in that way. And to all Trout haters out there, you cannot call last night boring. I think of Tommy as a Trout hater. I think he's sworn off watching Trout for life. You cannot call that boring. He had a beastly couple rounds there, and he slugged it out, and it became really like a Cotto Margaritos sort of esque fight there for a while. Just a great back and forth at times, and even when he was half conscious sitting on the stool, I think he still wanted to go on. He didn't want his corner to stop it, but they did. I think it was a good decision. But he's a true warrior.
True warrior, says Dave. Just to round out the Barclays Centre card with you, Rob Kelly, we had a first round knockout. We had a fight that were a good solid scrap for as long as it lasted, and then a 12-round boxing match, one for the connoisseur, as Paul Smith says. Are you happy with the night's action there over in New York?
Yeah, it was class. I'm buzzing for that. It was a great weekend of action. I was excited to see Charlo finish his opponent. Lovely little right hand, sneak right hand. A little throwaway jab just beforehand as well. Like the two of them were just kind of probing each other a little bit and went to sleep for a split second and paid the price. Like I don't think he was getting up. Some people said that might have been a harsh stop. He's like, I can't see that. Like his arm was reaching and all that. He didn't know where he was. Like it was interesting. It was funny afterwards in the interview when Charlo was doing his best Clubber Lang impression. He was like, oh, they threw a stool at my dude. That was pretty funny. Like, but it was interesting to hear when they said, "Who do you want next to?" And Hurd straight away. Like he doesn't want.
Exactly. I noticed that one, mate.
No, he doesn't want to with Lara. Like, and as boring as Lara is, I mean, I like a slick fighter. But God damn it, like. He still beats everyone at 154, I think, which is a pity, like, because his style is just not that appealing to the masses, like, even though he is gifted, like, but and vulnerable too, like, you know what I mean? But it's just he's never going to be a crossover star. I think they need that at 154, and Charlo could be that. Like, if he goes and knocks Hurd out now, I don't know where it kind of puts him in a fight where he must fight Lara, doesn't it? So, but yeah, and Trout, I didn't really want to see Trout again. I thought Trout had missed the boat a little bit. Had his big win over Cotto, and I thought he was going to fade to obscurity. And he showed last night he was in the last chance saloon, and he's going to be harsh on the corner when he looks back because he was in the fight, he was leading in the fight, and if he'd had an end swell, things might have been different for him. He might have been able to move a little bit better or whatever. But he was getting caught, and he slugged it out. So I think you might see him stick around. He might even change trainers if he's got any sense, or change cornermen at least. And what was the other fight again? Oh, Lara, where Lara was a predictable win, really, wasn't it? Like, so, yeah, but I was buzzing for the fights over the weekend, actually. So came back, a really good weekend, knockouts and all that. So what more can I ask for?
Yeah, we'll be coming back to you very shortly with the Groves-Cox fight. Just before we move over to that Wembley fight, Matty, just a quick word from you. We haven't mentioned one guy at the 6 fighters on the weekend, this Terrell Gautier, very much a former Olympian, I believe. He got knocked down in the fight. Was he boxing within himself? Is there anything more he could have done against a Rubik's Cube like Lara?
I don't know. You poor bastards went 4, 5, 6 rounds into it. I fell asleep after a minute and a half. I will say
I'll answer that question. No, there's no way. There's nothing else that he could have done besides get knocked out or knocked down more. I mean, the thing that you've seen with guys that have had any kind of success was like Angulo and like I think Hurd would do, which would be apply the pressure and keep coming forward and punching. Like, you're not going to outbox the guy. There's just no way. Nobody's going to outbox Lara.
Yeah,
and
well,
it's not because I think he's that good, but he is good. He's good enough to not be outboxed by anybody. The only way you're going to beat him is if you make it a fight, and we've seen that. It doesn't matter how many times guys go in there and try to be boxers against him. It's not going to work, you know. So
I disagree. I think Andrade, because he's so tall and long, could outbox Lara. But on the Gautier front, when the fight was announced, I had no interest in it. I thought to myself, this guy's gonna have to pull one out of his ass. Like, if we've been watching the Olympians come up, he was the most underwhelming for me of all the American professionals turned pro. He just, meh. He's just the essence of meh.
How'd you like that little double jab he pulls out there going, huh, huh, and it lands about a foot away from Lara's face?
Just a useless fact for you guys. I noticed Andrade's fighting next week.
Yeah, he is. That's right. That's on the Jezreel Corrales card, isn't it? Yeah.
That's the one now.
Yeah. Dave, I've always been a fan of fighters who make noises when they shout. I remember Anthony Farnell was a bit like that. He used to go, "Argh!" every time he threw a shot.
So like constipated.
Devin Alexander.
Khan too, right?
God.
Drooling noises.
So when Khan and Alexander fought, there was a lot of vocalizations going on.
Khan fights are fucking awful because you have to listen to him yell when he punches, and then they always have those stupid soccer horns from the World Cup going too. It's just awful. I mean, it sounds like someone's raping a giraffe.
It brings back really bad traumatic memories because Khan made the same sounds when he jacked off on Skype.
There's a lot of Groves-Cox fight last night. They started off with the kind of, he got the kind of Spurs chant,
Aye.
Oh, fuck, it was awful. Thought it was only going on, right?
We're moving on to that now, Andy. Don't worry, I'll be coming to you next. Let's go to.
Can I just say one thing about Lara Gosh or Gay Shaw, as the interpreter called him, Gautier. I thought it wasn't a very appealing fight at all, but there's a sort of interesting narrative that you could push regarding the two guys. You had Gautier, who in the past, this is shortly after he turned pro, several years ago now, related to the whole Black Lives Matter thing. It was one of them, a black guy had been killed by a cop, and Gautier said, "I will no longer wear the American flag on my trunks again," even though he was the Olympian. I don't want to fight for this country anymore that kills black people. But then on the converse side of that, last night you had Lara, a Cuban, in red, white, and blue. I know those are the Cuban colors too, but he also had the American Dream on the back of his trunks. Gabe might be able to speak to this because I know Lara is based in Texas. I know Gabe likes Lara, but it seems to me like it's almost like the foreign fighter, the immigrant, has embraced American culture. Or the positives of American culture, while the Native American, Gautier, sort of only sees the negative. I just thought it was sort of an interesting contrast. You could probably write a nice poetic political article about that.
Yeah, let's ask the guy from Texas about it.
But Lara's a naturalized American.
I don't think that's appropriate, Matthew, for your liberal ass to be trying to hurt other people's feelings is what I would expect you to say.
I love you, buddy.
Right, come on, Gabe, hurry up.
Sorry about that. Just to speak to that, I don't want to get into a political debate, but I think it's it's just more of, in my mind, a point of view that you see from people who have experienced completely different lives. I mean, Lara grew up probably most likely, most assuredly in some level of poverty. Not to say that Gautier didn't, but you have two different aspects and two different lives. And I do think it's interesting. I think that Lara is making some efforts to embrace being an American, while Gautier doesn't. But I think that's a whole different topic for a different day. I just think it's an interesting point that was brought up.
Yeah, very quickly, let me just say I do find a sense of irony, though, that he calls himself the American dream, but then he's complicit in the destruction of it by putting everyone to sleep.
Very good, Matty. I think we'll close that discussion on that particular point. Ozzy Smith has jumped on the call. Ozzy, any thoughts on the PBC card? We're talking Hurd, Charlo, Lara, overriding feelings?
Thought Charlo was excellent. I saw a few people write him off again and again. I think people are coming to realise don't write off either Charlo now. It was destructive. Probably knockout of the year. I think you'll struggle to find a better one than that. Eris Landy Lara was Eris Landy Lara. Did what he had to do. He's hardly entertaining, is he? What was the other fight? I forget the other one. But no, it was okay. I watched it this morning. I didn't stay up for it. But no, it was okay. Oh, and Jarrett Hurd, Austin Trout. I thought I saw some questionable cards, actually. I saw people had scored Trout. They had him up 4-5. Now, I didn't really score it, but I saw the cards at the end of it, and they had Hurd all winning by 4-2. But I thought that was okay. I think Trout's long past his best. But no, it was a solid card and enjoyable.
Excellent. We shall move on to London, Smido. Let's go to you first. Jamie Cox getting knocked out in the 4th round by George Groves. Really exciting affair, this one. I know I was hitting you with niche German fighters last week, Smido. I'm going to come up with a niche reference here. Jamie Cox's performance reminded me of a fight quite a few years ago now. Scott Harrison was defending his WBO featherweight title against Walter Estrada from Colombia. Mr. Estrada came out and just threw wild shots from the southpaw stance for about the first 3 or 4 rounds, and he admitted afterwards that he just came out, throwing loads of shots, empty the gas tank. I either knock him out or I'm getting knocked out myself. Cox gave off the vibe that was his game plan last night. I'm going to give it a go. I'm going to empty my tank, and I either get rid of him or I get knocked out myself. What do you think about that?
Well, I think I agree. I think he had almost no other option, to be honest, given his lack of experience at that level, his time out the ring, and the size disadvantage. So I don't fault him for, if that was his idea to just go in and have a fucking go, and if you come up short, you come up short. I don't fault him for that. It was a peach of a shot. I think it really caught fire almost straight away. First round, I think they was both tagged. And again in the second, and yeah, it was a really good fight while it lasted. Groves just get alarm bells with Groves, don't you? You know, he was up against them ropes. I think it was in the first or second. Cox has hit him with a couple of shots, body and head, and he just looks unstable. But he don't panic as much as he used to do, Groves. To be fair, and obviously that's come with experience, but you could just see the gulf between them in terms of, as I've mentioned, size, experience, and Groves really just got the job done in the end. And you've got to say fair play to him, because that wasn't an easy fight for him last night. He's landed a peach of a shot, and the fight was over. What round was it in the end, Steve?
Round 4.
Yeah. So that is just like we say, just a firefight. Groves has come out on top. And what I would say in this Super Series generally is that looking forward now to the Groves and Eubank fight, the hype behind Eubank is massive. Eubank is now found himself in the favourites position in the betting for the whole tournament, and as a result of that, is in a favourites position against Groves at the moment. So that's another thing to take into account. But I think, as we said last week after the Eubank fight, I think that Groves will certainly be the bigger man against Eubank, and I think that will show in the ring. But what was clear last night and last week, we spoke about Groves and Eubank, and most of us picked Groves, including me. What was clear last night is, if the two gas tanks, there's a massive, massive gulf between them. You know, Eubank can just go in and look like he's throwing punches all day in training and in the ring. They might not be the most powerful, as we've discussed. But yeah, I just think Eubank will clearly out-gas tank Eubank. Now, that might not be out-gas tank Groves, but that might not be enough to win the fight on its own. So it makes it into a big fight. But, you know, we've said this before as well, and someone said it on Twitter again last night. There's a big opportunity been missed here, though, Steve, because the combined people numbers that would have paid a tenner last night and a tenner the week before is going to be minuscule. If they'd have had them to even on ITV4,
yeah,
you know, no payment. That's a fucking big fight, mate. Eubank and Groves is probably the biggest all British fight that can be made that don't include Edward Hearn. Like, it probably is. You know, they should have built towards that, and that's an absolutely massive fight. Then they could have charged pay-per-view for that, and then we wouldn't moan as much. We still won't bloody pay it as lot on here, but we won't moan as much. They've just missed a bit of a trick there. You know, apparently Eubank was there last night. I turned off as soon as Cox was down, to be honest. But you know, hopefully they build it in the right way. Hopefully it happens, and Eubank don't bottle it, because I don't think Groves will. And we've got a fight to look forward to.
Smitho, you're a great man for investing. They didn't use a good investment strategy. Maybe they were thinking that one of them might have got beat. Groves might have got beat. Eubank might have got beat. But they should have been looking at the bigger picture, like you said.
They should have been. And we're not even being clever after the event here. We said this from the start, because you know we knew that there was potential for all British decent showdowns. But yeah, it's just, I mean, I'm talking of investment. We don't invest in pay-per-view, so it don't make no difference to us. But you know, I think they've just missed the trick massively. Eubank really is potential, as his dad was, to really head up a resurgence in boxing away from Sky. Just take advantage of it, boys.
Yes. Rob, Smitho was mentioning the gas tank there. I do agree about Eubank's gas tank. He does look like he can throw punches all night.
Yeah, and I think...
What I was going to say, sorry, Rob, was... Like we're getting a bit of feedback here. When he's in the ascendancy, but when someone's dabbing him, he might not be as quick.
Let me see, can you hear me now?
Go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of fragility about Groves. I picked him to win this tournament before at the start, but looking at him last night, even though he had a convincing performance and a beautiful finish, beautiful shot to the solar plexus, winded him, and he was never getting up. I'd have expected him to just box better in the fight. I think he put a bit wide on. I think he had his chance in that. I think he had his chance in that, and it's maybe past for him now. I know he's won a world title and he's maybe the man there, but like, I think Eubank might just be getting him at the Frot's probably ruined him, to be honest with you. I think he'll never be the same fighter, and maybe Eubank might be getting him at the same time. Last week I was favouring Groves, but just looking at him last night, I see just little vulnerabilities with him, and you know, he could walk onto something or he could gas, and maybe Eubank could take over down the stretch. I don't know, but it's an interesting fight. I'm definitely interested to see it.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, Andy. Because before the fight, I fancied Eubank to just beat Groves, and after the Groves-Cox fight last night, I still fancy Eubank. But the thing that I'm thinking is, can Eubank maintain that type of pace if he's got someone who's tapping into the body, who's physically strong, who's hitting him back? It's okay when he's battering the likes of Reinald Quinlan, who doesn't punch, Arthur Abraham, who's shot to shit, Yildirim, who's just a bit of a robot. You see the pattern here? He's going to have someone who's going to be hitting him back.
Yep. I was thinking about this last night. I know a lot of people knew seem to be kind of... It's a closer fight, shall we say, based off that. Now, this is the first and only time you'll ever hear me give Jamie COX some credit. He came out there, I think it was his own game plan, because after the first round, I thought his corner actually gave him a bit of a hard time to say, look, listen, didn't rush forward like that, because he's trying to draw you in. He's trying to counter you. I don't think COX even actually adhered to that even in the second round. He just seemed to kind of really press it and try to kind of really put it upon him. So I won't give him that much credit. He kind of tried to put the fight to Groves, but it was all saying. I did think he was going to get stopped. I didn't think it was going to get stopped so quick. If you look at the body shot, actually, it was pretty brutal, because if you look at it, study it, he took a fucking sear dig right to the right hand side of the top rib, and he sat on his arse and his legs kind of spread out behind him. That is like the message that it says, I've got nothing, you know, it's just got to go absolutely erased from him. Everything he's been, his gas, everything just got taken out of him with that one shot. Groves is an elite puncher, I think. Counter punching, the jab wasn't so much on point last night because simple fact is he had to deal with a shitload of pressure coming forward toward him. I think Cox is more compact with his punches compared to Eubank. Eubank's kind of he's way wide. He kind of telegraphs uppercut sometimes, especially with the right hooks and stuff. I do expect him still to miss a fair number of punches against Groves. Now, Groves is what's been mentioned before. Speedo mentioned it. We've mentioned it many times in the past. His gas tank's not great. He looked blown out his arse, big style after 4 rounds there last night, and he did find the shot at the end of the day in the 4th round. But if Eubank can keep that pressure up constantly for the first 6-7 rounds, and he's still got enough in the tank to play with after that, I think Eubank has got a chance to take this on points. I'm not going to go against my conviction. I think Groves is going to win it. I'm going to say he's going to win it. I think he's going to beat Eubank, just purely maybe based on the quality of shots. And if he can, I don't know if Eubank, we didn't know if Eubank's got his old man's chin. We saw the other one there last night getting chinned in 1 round, so that DNA test no required there. But we don't know if Junior's got the same chin as his old man. But I think Groves could potentially stop him, just basically on counter punching, body shots and stuff. But I don't think Eubank is as accurate as what we say. Cox landed a few shots on Groves there last night. He seemed to take them. Okay, backed off. Maybe he was hurt, maybe he wasn't. I really don't know. I don't rate Eubank as a puncher, but I tell you what, based off that last night, what Cox did, basically just kind of put his heart out there. If Eubank does the same, we've got a really interesting fight actually. I'm going to go 55-45 to Groves at the minute, and I still think Groves could potentially stop him just purely based on counter punching and how hard he hits. But based off the sparring footage I've seen of Groves and Eubank had his way with him. So I don't know. It's come back to me in a couple of months' time when this is going to happen. But as I say, it's getting interesting now, actually, and I really am looking forward to this one. It's going to be, and as Speedo quite rightly says, it's the biggest fight, between 2 British boxers that doesn't involve Eddie Hearn or Frank Warren for that matter. So I'm really looking forward to this one.
Yeah, plenty of good action in the ring last night, and also, unfortunately, there was a bit of bother outside, which seems to be becoming commonplace in British boxing at the moment, over the water. I think that there was actually an incident in Walsall Town Hall as well last night in the boxing, possibly even a fatality.
Stabbing.
Yeah, someone was stabbed to death, I believe. So, I mean, that's real. That's not good. We've had a few questions and comments on this. The Boxing Inquirer, our friend Ben, has jumped in. He said, trouble at boxing is getting out of control. We need better or more security, or it could really harm boxing as a whole. I've personally seen bad fights at the Copper Box, numerous Manchester shows and various small hall shows and white collar. These big shows are getting worse than the white collar shows at the minute. It doesn't affect me, but when you see scared punters leaving, including women and teenagers, it's a real shame. There needs to be a collaborative approach across the board to find a solution. Any thoughts? Gabe, have you ever been to a show in Texas or wherever where it's kicked off in the stands? I've been to one where it's kicked off a couple of times, but nothing as bad as what seems to be happening now. Gabe?
I have.
Go on then, Matty.
Alvarado fight, wasn't it?
Yeah, Alvarado Provodnikov, man, and a bunch of Alvarado's fans got into it with a bunch of Russians up in the cheap seats. Like, the destruction stuff, it was madness. Absolute madness. But I think that goes to show you, and I think there was also something with the Gautier and the Lubin people that happened as well. I think, sometimes it is what it is, and it's just people get rowdy and stuff. But I think it's just, if you look just generally, a sociological kind of idea, people seem to be reverting more towards a tribalistic kind of state, and that's more prone to violence and, like a feeling of protecting your own, which is really bad for contact sport events. Like, really bad combination.
Yeah, Andy, I believe you have a comment to make on this. Our friend Harry Chandler came in. He said, what is British boxing going to do about crowd violence? More of the same last night at Groves versus Cox. I've been to 1 or 2 shows, but I'm almost put off in fear of having my head caved in. This violence is surely turning a lot of potential boxing fans away.
Fair comments by all round. What I will say is this, guys, if you can afford it, upgrade to VIP, get yourself ringside, keep yourself safe, because quite rightly pointed out, Tommy's dad got attacked at the Ndongo Burns fight, got his orbital bone broken just purely for standing up during the national anthem. I mentioned this before at the Burns and Ndongo fight. The guy behind me for the first 8 rounds just appeared for the main event, shouting, "Jab, jab, right hand, Ricky. Jab, jab, right hand, Ricky." And then after 8 rounds, I turned around and he's lying sleeping. So clearly we've got guys turning up here on the fucking flake. They're drinking 18 pints or whatever and turn up for the main event and creating absolute chaos. Now, compare and contrast, actually, I didn't mention this when I came back, but see the Usyk Huck fight. I walked in the arena, right, and we're with Russians, we're Ukrainians, Germans, there's a few Brits there and stuff like that. Walked in, and we got ushered there at this place to hand your jacket over, and you get into the cloakroom, get a token back and stuff. I'm getting it big loudy when Usyk won amongst a big pile of Germans. Walked down, security was pretty much non-existent, but I tell you what, there was not one hint of bother. Okay, there was bother last week at Stuttgart and stuff like that, but that's the fucking Turks for you, they're crazy, but it is a real problem. It seems to always coincide some reason for when there's a fucking recession or whatever, but it's like everything else. Some of the wee cunts get full of the Charlie, full of the drink. They're in groups of 5, 6, 10, 15 people, so they're in a gang. They're hunting packs. It's always the same, but put them on their own, they're not going to do fuck all. But it is a bad sign, actually, and it's just going to make it even worse, because see when you fucking even press row, I've seen myself walk in there with fucking like a bottle of water and basically almost get strip searched off these guys in security. Now, you would say in the UK security guys are pretty much knobheads, but then you fucking put these scenes at Groves-Eubank here into perspective last night. People are shouting when they're videoing it, "What the fuck security doing? What the fuck do you expect security to do? Security's getting fucking, minimum wage for that shit there last night. There's young lassies in security, right? Do you expect them to get weighed in amongst fucking 15 guys fucking throwing punches? Are you kidding me on? In Spain they wouldn't fuck about. They've been there with tear gas and batons and stuff like that. But this is the UK you're talking about. People have got rights. If they want to battle, let them fucking battle, because they're going to sue you anyway if you fucking decide to go and give them a kicking. Same in America and all that sort of shit. Let them fucking fight it out. It's just the way it is. What do? You're going to get more security in there. It's just going to get even worse. It's a fucking nightmare. It's getting really bad at the Hearn shows, from what I remember. We seen what happened to the Warren shows at the fucking Fury fight, and there's a stab and potential death at the Walsall shows, at the BDB promotion show, whatever it was. I seen it was on Facebook last night. It's fucking sad, man. It's pure fucking utter sadness.
It is sad, Smitho, isn't it? I remember taking my missus to the boxing once and assured her there's no trouble, it's all fine, and then it went and freaking kicked off, didn't it? I had to bring her to ringside.
I think, as Andy said, it's now getting to the stage whereby no matter where you're sitting, i.e. press row or right on the back row of the stand, you're as likely to see it. I mean, that one last night from Groves, they're seeing so-called security, little kids standing in high-vis jackets. Literally, he was getting further away from the action, if you like. And calling it action, I'm not trying to make it sound clever. He was walking further away from the incident rather than going to sort it, and you can't blame him, because I've said this before, years ago, the Magnificent Seven show in Birmingham, Frank Warren put it on. That's the worst I've ever seen, and it was because we had factions from different parts of the country, etc. We had Frankie Gavin's Birmingham lot, we had Enzo Macronelli's Welsh lot all kicking off. There was a bit of a Manchester influence, bit of a London influence from Derek Chisora, etc. It just made them, it all adds to the melting pot, and it goes off, because in these stands, and we've all seen it, all you need really is one idiot or one little group to do something, whether that be throwing drinks or just shouting for the opposite guy to you. And because everyone's so close together, it don't take a lot to kick off. You can, as Andy says, you start defending yourself, because you're in so close quarters, and it's just dangerous. You thought people are getting bent over, over the seats, etc. Just they're vulnerable, just getting punched and kicked. It's real bad. And I think there was a kickoff, because I was there on the MEN show with Liam Smith and Liam Williams, and I've took the piss for Frank for sending that show to Newcastle. And I have said that, I did say I wondered if it was because because of potential problems, they're sending a Liverpool and a Manchester fight, a Liverpool and a Cardiff-ish fighter to Newcastle don't sound like it makes sense on paper, but that could be the reasoning behind it, because no matter how much of these so-called security guards you put in place, it's difficult to stop, especially when it's dark. And I've seen security attack before. When security are coming up the stairs to try and stop something. Next thing people are turning on security as they're coming up. They're hitting them on the way. They're hitting them back down again. It's. It just puts you off. And as Andy says, we get such a better experience when we're in other countries. There's quite a few of us on here that do go to international shows, whether that be Europe or Steve's been to New York, etc. I know a lot of our mates go to Las Vegas. It's just a whole different feeling. And and the thing is, and Eddie is outright trying to bring this culture. He's even said it, to bring the culture of basically getting on the lash, swinging Sweet Caroline, and seeing two blokes knock shit out of each other. He's trying to bring that now over to America. And there's some parts of America that don't really need encouragement when it comes to violence and drinking. So we'll see how that goes there.
I don't know if it's still the case, but am I right in saying that in the UK you're not supposed to take drinks into the stands where you can basically into the arena itself? You go to stand in the concourse.
No, you can still take them into the arena. Yeah.
Well, if I remember in Glasgow you can't do that anyway. I remember the Burns Crawford fight. You had to stand in the concourse for it, right? But in Germany, as I says, everybody's having a few beers, and you go, they're all buying their drink, you're fucking doing the front and stuff like that. Absolutely no problem. It is the British mentality. It is an absolute fucking embarrassment. It's the same in holiday. You take them to Spain, right? The first thing they look for is either a British or an English or a fucking Irish pub. First thing they look for is a pint of lager and a pint of Guinness. The only thing they accept is the fucking sun, right? They take nothing to do with what's good or what's different about that culture. They go out there and make an absolute... Look at the English at the fucking World Cup last year. Absolute fucking embarrassment. Embarrassment. It's the British culture all air. You go your own, you go yourself, go to like Vegas, go to New York and stuff like that. You get it, recently for me, Germany and stuff like that, I'm mixed in with a lot of people. Absolutely, we're all having a good beer and stuff like that. Not a fucking problem. It's the British mentality, and it needs to fucking change, and it badly needs to change, because there is, there's going to be more fucking fatalities at these fucking fights. And go back to Tommy's dad. Tommy's dad was lucky he didn't lose his eyesight, and he was fucking almost fortunate as well. Didn't need surgery to kind of fix that broken bone. It's an absolute disgrace.
Maybe I'm not Team Eddie anymore. And you Brits call us violent. I mean, shit. I mean, Maddie said he was at Colorado, obviously, and there was some violence. But I've been to several shows, never had a problem at all. The worst thing was some Mexicans trying to cheer during Joe Frazier's 10-bell count, and some Americans like, shut the fuck up. And that's about it.
Ozzy, back to matters inside the ring. Jamie COX, George Groves. COX came out and had a good go. I'm not sure how many of his shots were actually landing. I know the commentary were getting excited. A few people on Twitter were. I don't think Groves was maybe buzzed, definitely disorganised, hurt. Not so sure he was.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think he was hurt at all. I actually thought he caught well in stages and blocked quite a few while he was on the ropes. I do think he struggles with pressure now. I think when COX was going in like a bull in a china shop, just swarming all over him, he did look to struggle at times, but at the same time, he was never rocked. And COX was bigged up as this huge puncher, and Groves is dubbed as chinny, but we never saw Groves wobbled at all. And COX did land clean a couple of times. I do think that will do Groves the world of good going into the Eubank fight, because, as you previously mentioned, Eubank's all action, throwing loads of punches. But I do think COX is more accurate. Eubank, I can't remember somebody put it on Twitter. I think Eubank in the finish of Yildirim threw 30 punches, landed 3. I mean, obviously it didn't matter because Yildirim ended up KO'd on the floor. But no, I thought Groves boxed really well. I thought he boxed really, really well. All credit to Jamie COX. I know I was one of them. Said it was a complete mismatch. And he stepped up to the plate for the 4 rounds of what it was worth. I think he was thrown in at the deep end. Would have been good to see him in with Rocky Fielding, which was what the plan was. And then maybe see this further down the line. But I think with the style he's got, providing he can keep his head, there can be a lot to like about Jamie COX. And as for George Groves, I think he beats Eubank. I agree. I think he can stop him. I think Eubank will come to bring it. But I can't, correct me if I'm wrong, but he was slowing down against Gary O'Sullivan, Spike. Now I know he stopped O'Sullivan, but he threw a hell of a lot into that. I think that went into the 6th or 7th round, and he was visibly tiring then. Now I know he's come on from that, but it's very rare you're going to see someone who can maintain this high intense action for 12 rounds. It just depends if Groves can keep him off of sorts, which, as you said, he hits hard. I think his power is underrated. But no, I think Groves will beat Eubank, and Jamie Cox can definitely come again.
Donny, we have a question in on the Facebook page from Wes Shaw just before we go on to the Cox Groves main event. What about the losers here? Cox against Yildirim, says Rob, says Wes, in fact, Donny. Both men coming off losses in the World Boxing Super Series. Both men like to bang, and it could be a fun scrap if it were to get made, possibly on the Groves versus Eubank undercard. If the fight was made today, who wins? Cox versus Yildirim, Donny?
Well, seeing as I didn't see the fight last night, it might be hard for me to tell. I'm only really just going off of your descriptions. I mean, I guess from what it sounds like last night, Cox's gas tank was a big problem, and so I guess if Yildirim could survive and not get knocked out, I think he would be maybe likely to take it late, or Cox might take it early.
And what about Groves-Eubank? Who wins that, Donny?
Oh, I still take Groves for that. I mean, I'm not totally sold on Eubank just yet. He is very athletic, and he does seem to be able to throw a lot of punches for a sustained period of time, particularly at 168. He wasn't necessarily like that when he was down at 160, fighting Alexa Saunders, for instance. But I don't know. Experience definitely means something, and as far as I remember, Eubank Jr. basically had no amateur career, right?
That's correct. Very little.
So, yeah, I think that Eubank has been in the types of fights thus far where he's been set up to look very good, and the guys that he's fought aren't necessarily no names. All right, Abraham shot the shit, but he does have experience, and obviously, he's looked better and better with each fight lately, but I don't think anyone has really had the skills and the experience to really test him the way Groves has. And I think Groves has been through those trials, and I think he's ready maybe to give Eubank a very rude awakening. So I definitely would take Groves in that fight. It's not a strong pick, but I'm reasonably confident that George Groves would, I think, outbox him and can actually hurt him too with his very big power.
Yeah, talking of amateur experience, something tells me Cox won like a gold or a silver at something. Maybe it was at the Commonwealth. I could be completely making that up. It's been a while now, but I think he was a decent amateur. Final comment to you, Gabe, before we move on to the Santa Cruz Mares card. Just looking forward, really. I know you haven't seen much of the Cox Groves fights ahead. You see a Groves versus Eubank fight playing out?
Actually, I did. I have been watching it while we've been on. So one thing that stands out to me is the activity of Cox in the fight. So Groves was able to deal with the activity and the pressure he was putting on. I think he had some good counterpunching going on. I think he had some good hard punches up and downstairs going both ways. But the concern that I have is, and this is where I get mixed up on who I'm going to pick, is how set will Eubank have to be to throw those punches in combination and really unleash like he did against Yildirim? If he can maneuver without having to be perfectly set up every time he goes to throw his punches, he can win the fight. If he has to be perfectly set up, footwork wise, before he'll let his hands go, Groves will outmaneuver him with footwork and pick him apart. And I think this is a much closer fight than I've originally considered, but I think I'm going to go with Groves, but I think Eubank can win the fight if he'll be ready to move his hands without being set. If he can do that and cut the ring when Groves moves, he can take the fight. I think he's got enough activity and enough power maybe to take Groves. So in my mind, it's a 50-50 fight, and it comes down to Eubank being set versus punching on the move.
Excellent stuff, Gabe.
He squares up too much, doesn't he, Eubank?
What is it, Matty?
Eubank. He squares up way too much, especially inside.
He's very technically flawed. I mean, he's still got, and he's pretty open for counters too. I mean, he got hit a fair amount, even by Yildirim. I think he got punched with a good, hard, clean shot right before the knockout.
He has his old man's beard, though. You got to give him credit. He can take a decent shot.
Yeah,
I think Maddie's right about that, and I think he does square up a lot, and that's what I'm saying. If he can punch on the move while Groves is trying to get away from him, I think it'll be fine. I'm not saying that'll be the absolute end all of winning or losing the fight, but he'll have to walk through a little bit of fire too to get to that point. So if he squares up, I mean, Groves is going to tee off on him, and that's what I'm talking about there. If like Maddie says, if he squares up, Groves will pick him apart and then move out.
Talking of impressive finishes, Andy, just briefly before we move on, Patrick Nielsen couldn't get out the way of John Ryder's right hook, and that finishing combination was beautiful. Right hook knocked the gum shield out. Nielsen was a bit stunned, started pointing to the gum shield, so Ryder said, okay, I'll land the left hand, and then a lovely right uppercut, was it, underneath Nielsen's arm? It was a beautiful finish.
Savage, mate, wasn't it? It was absolutely brutal. I think it was the second round he got dropped. He got dropped pretty heavily, actually. Yes. And he never really recovered for it, actually. As you say, when he got hit with the right hand again, the fifth, the fucking gum shield comes out. He's like, where the fuck did that go? So he's looking for it. And next minute he takes a left hook, as you say, and a right uppercut, and just dropped like a sack of shit. I mean, I've watched Nielsen for a fair number of years now, actually. But I remember when he was getting touted as heir to Mikko Kessler's throne. I knew pretty much within the first 3 or 4 fights I watched him, he didn't have the power. Didn't have the fucking charisma of Kessler. He was okay, but he never really kind of stepped up in class, so to speak. And his best, I'm trying to remember who his best winner is actually, but it doesn't really matter. But
he beat Rudy Markusen, but Markusen was ancient by then.
Markusen had been the ring mate for about 3-4 years.
He's never that good in the first place, really, was he?
No, it was a money grab, that fight, in all honesty. Just if you give me a second here, to pull up his best win. I think it might have been Charlo Adamu. I think Groves might have fought him as well.
That's scraping the barrel, isn't it?
It is, mate. I mean, any day. I mean, who do you want? Comanche boy, Tony Jeter.
Tony Jeter.
And he got beat kind of like really comfortably off Chudinov. That's Dmitry Chudinov, actually. So, generally speaking, he's generally tough, but that was at middleweight, and they got up to like, I mean, okay, Ryder's. I think that was a middleweight fight. I think it was at the end of the day, was it? I think it was a middleweight fight. But you got to get the Ryder.
No, super middle, because Nielsen was ready to jump in if there was an injury in the main event, wasn't he, last night?
Give me a check.
Yeah,
just to check.
Yeah, it was at super middle.
Oh, I just see here 10 rounds for a middleweight contest.
Yeah.
So you got to get to Ryder, because after everything's went down there with that prick side Clayton who was involved with him and stuff like that as well. I think he must have known, or I think if you speak to people within his camp and stuff like that, they must have known that if he lost this fight, there was really nowhere for him to go, and he came out there emphatic performance of Ryder there last night, and he gets himself right amongst the mix. Whether you actually agree with the rankings or not, but the guy's got himself in a good position for a decent payday, and I might need to go to Germany for it. But at the end of the day, he's put himself into a good position. So his career goes on. He got to get the Ryder. Ryder came out there. He was boss for the first second to the last second. So good performance, great performance.
Yeah, buzzing for Ryder, Rob. I remember him dissecting Eamon O'Kane a few years ago and thinking he was going places. Hasn't quite worked out for him since.
Yeah, and as you know, he's kind of related to his granddad and my dad are first cousins, and keeping good contact with his granddad, so he's buzzing. Thought he boxed really well last night, better than he had. He had a couple of chances. I think he was winning the Blackwell fight, and then the Anfield one, he got started a little bit slower. And Billy Joe was obviously Billy Joe, but last night I was delighted for him. I thought he cut the ring off a lot better. And it's a prime example. Don't go hooking when your opponents ain't looking, or only go hooking when your opponent ain't looking, because the lead hook is one of the hardest punches to throw, and both of them threw it, and he got it off his first. He got low, and the finish after that, the left hand and the right uppercut were emphatic, bang on the chin. Shout to Jim Watt. yeah, great buzzing for him. So he's put himself in a good position, and Zoiga's not all that either, is he? Like, so, you know, he might have to knock him out too, but he's capable. It looks like he's capable of doing it now. So I'd love to see him get a crack at it. Really would.
Yeah, go ahead, Ozzy.
No, I was going to say I actually spoke to John this morning and last night, and he basically, in a nutshell, said what you said, Andy, that if he did fall to a defeat, he was saying like what a cruel sport it is. He didn't know where to go. Now, he's not been promised anything yet, and he didn't know how it was going to work with the rankings, but he said he was absolutely over the moon. He said it was the best camp. People were saying he can still make middleweight. It's one of those now he can do, but he takes that much weight off. He's just left so frail, and then he's putting it back on. He can't. He doesn't have that intensity. I thought last night is the best that we've seen John Ryder in a long, long time. And I think, like you said as well, with all the shit with Cy Clayton, who he was close with John, very close, and John was not rattled by it, but very shocked. He's fucked him off the waste of space. He's put in a performance, and I want to say that will kill Cy Clayton more than anything. That he couldn't have been at that fight last night because he was one of John Ryder's biggest supporters, and that will kill him, knowing that he couldn't have been there and enjoying this moment. And it's one thing that people can take from it. I mean, he was one. He took cash off me as well, not a lot compared to everybody else, but
bastard.
I know for a fact that he will, wherever he is, he will be sat there devastated that he couldn't be in that arena to watch John win that fight. And if you're taking anything from it, that's one thing, because without boxing, he has absolutely fuck all.
Excellent news.
So,
listen, Ozzy, mate, just I'm going to read you this tweet from my mate Scotty RFC, tweeted out there last night after Ryder knocked him out, and I quote, "Somewhere in a bedsit, Cy Clayton is having a cry wank into somebody else's £20 note after watching John Ryder tonight."
Well, if he's still getting other people's £20 notes, I'll be gobsmacked at that, but I can probably echo the rest. And
yeah, fuck him.
Hopefully he's crying the waste of space. So no, over the moon for John Ryder. I think he's one of boxing's likeable characters. He got a lot of did his profile the world of good, and like you say, he can't. The guy can't get a break for a British title. He's lost split decisions and to Rocky Fielding, but now he could potentially be going in with Tyron Zoiga and winning, albeit not the real world title, but something that could propel him to a shot at George Groves or Chris Eubank Jr., depending on the situation of this tournament.
Smido, quick word from you and Johnny Ryder, if you're interested.
Just echoing everything what's already been said. To be honest, he's been almost forgotten by his promoter. As Ozzy said, he's found it tough to catch a break. And you can kind of tell really that I think he has struggled in camps. He's probably struggled in camps, making the weight, little niggly injuries, and obviously last night he got it right, and it paid off. And then within minutes, his so-called promoter was tweeting big win. I mean, it's just so cynical from the man that I don't want to name at this point, but. Yeah, fair play to him, and I think the Zoiga fight would be ideal. He's obviously got that connection now with Sauerland. They know that Zoiga's not that strong, and they probably still think that they can beat John Ryder despite his performance last night anyway. So best of luck to him.
Yeah, final comment on this card. Andy did mention it earlier. I think Nathaniel Wilson, who I believe is the bastard son of Chris Eubank Sr., got knocked out by a journeyman called Johnny Phillips. Marvelous Mendo jumped in with a comment. He said, after the amazing finish from Johnny Phillips over the spilt seed of Eubank, if he called and you had to advise him when he wakes up this morning and realises the apple did actually fall far from the tree and probably roll down a hill to settle next to a pile of horse manure, what else would this 29-year-old try his hand at to stay off the streets of Croydon? I don't know, Mendo.
It was a good night for knockouts, I must admit. I mean, okay, we also had a DQ knockout last night, that Lewis Adolphe and Nathan McIntosh.
Yes.
That was really good as well. But it was a good night. I think Senior doesn't need to pay any money for any DNA tests and stuff like that. It was proven there last night. The guy can't take a punch. There's no seed of Eubank can't take a punch. Okay, we're going to find out about Junior shortly. He's got a bit of white in him and stuff like that. So. We don't know if that's maybe a kind of fragile chin involved there as well, but as for Mr. Wilson, that's no son of Eubank.
Yes, paternity test needed. Let's move on, Andy. Let's stay with you. StubHub Centre. I know you've been buzzing about this card.
Fuck.
Abner Mares defeating Andres Gutierrez. Gutierrez was more leaden-footed than the show, as it turned out, and Leo Santa Cruz was he was knocking Avalos about, Chris Avalos, and then all of a sudden he was starting to labour a little bit, and Al Heyman must have got word to ringside, look, Mr. Referee, you better stop this one, it's getting a bit embarrassing.
Yep, but at this time, I think it's quite evident why I needed a fucking tune-up fight. You know, honestly, it was, as I say, it's top of the show, that I was absolutely pissed off that this shit was put up first on the Sky card before the 154 fight. I was never any interest in watching it. Eddie Ramirez, you know, I mean, my fuck, that was a shit stoppage. That was okay. He was hurt a little bit, but you know, give the guy a chance. He was 70-0. You know, there's a potential world title shot looming somewhere in the next 12 to 18 months. Santa Cruz, you know, Avalos I thought he just took a bit of a beating, to be honest. You know, regardless of how Santa Cruz looked or how gassed they got or whatever. It was what this is called as it is. That card was shit. Gutierrez, I think he proved how much Frampton probably would have beat his fucking cunt in, by the way, because on that back foot, Frampton was just a fucking chinned him all night long with fucking straight right hands. Mares, okay, he was made to look $1 million there last night. You know, at the end of the day, you know, it's because he's fighting against a guy is obviously he's not really all that good. Okay, Mexican, he's going to carry you a few rounds. He's tough enough. Unless he fights a shower, I suppose, or passes out trying to make weight. But it was awful. It was just awful, that card all round. You know, I think it was even proven as well, but the stop-up centre being absolutely desolate just about. There was as much fucking charm as a mass grave in that fucking place here last night. Stands were empty. You know, for the amount of money those guys got, I believe both Mares and Santa Cruz got $750,000 for that fight there last night. How the fuck Al Heyman can keep paying that shit, I do not know. But something's going to have to come to a pass. And Mares Santa Cruz 2 isn't going to sell out all that much either. Avalos needs to retire. He's taken too many beatings. You know, that is, you know, as I say, 8 rounds of that there last night. He kind of like basically got it. Frampton gave him a bad beating. Valdez, Magzayo, kind of needs to call it quits. He's not got it, especially even at gatekeeper level. He needs to chuck it, call it a day.
What do you think, Matty? Chris Avalos maybe needs to pack it in now. I have a soft spot for Avalos. I remember interviewing him when he was about 19, hot prospect. He was about 14-0 at the time, and he's a bit of a strange character, and his family are a bit temperamental, to say the least. But do you think he should hang up the gloves now? He's taken a few too many shots to the head.
I thought his ceiling was pretty evident when he lost to Christopher Martin, so you know, it is what it is. He did what he was supposed to do. He won a few rounds with Leo. If he wants to stick around and do that, I mean, who the hell are we to tell him he can't earn a payday? But he's just going to be a gatekeeper, and if he wants to be a gatekeeper that gets fed one of, you know, the champions that Heyman has for a payday when they're without an opponent, you know, that's a fine way to go about life. You know, I'm not here to tell him not to. You know, I mean, you don't have to be a champion to make a living from boxing. So, you know, what the hell? If he wants to box, let him box.
Matty, just in case we lose you later as well, you're the original host, obviously, of this podcast. 5 years old this week or next week, thereabouts?
Yeah, that's pretty incredible. You guys
Matty, the revolution. Welcome to the revolution. Matty was the man. He was the one that gave us the name, not Nuthouse.
It was a good, yeah. It's a great show, and I'm glad it stayed going. It's just it's just been a great. It was really, for me, the chance to interview fighters was the coolest part of the whole thing. I think the chance to interview fighters and trainers, and that was really the best part of it all, because I mean, you don't get to hear much about it. You get to hear what they want to tell you, what the cut is, you know, in an article or stuff like that. But you get a chance to sit down with somebody for an hour and just, you know, just keep talking to them and throwing questions at them. You're going to learn something. And then doing shows like this in a small sport, that's what's cool for, is you get a chance to talk to people that you really admire. And yeah, and just really impressed with what you guys have done with it too. Really am.
Some of the more memorable interviews, Matty, I believe you and Nate Campbell became pretty close afterwards.
That was cool. Yeah, we talked to Nate for a few times, even outside of the interviews. He's just a really, really good dude. I haven't talked to him for a very long time. Even though what the heck happened. But anyways, he was a great guy. He was fun to talk to. John Scully was really cool to talk to. Donnie and I had a really fun interview with Edwin Rodriguez. Is Donnie still on?
Don Charles, remember him? Oh, fucking hell, he talked on
I love Don Charles.
Donnie's here. Go on, Don.
No, Matt can continue. I'm sorry. He was remembering all the interviews. Yes.
Do you remember interviewing Edwin Rodriguez?
Yes, I sure do. Yeah.
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 You talk about a cool guy. I mean, he's just so many of these. It's just like, because the thing about boxing is, unless you're by lineage, or you're the rarity, like kind of a Chris Algieri, it's one of those things where it's just common people. So it's you're talking to people that are just like you. They just happen to be skilled at something, and there's so many fun ones. But Andy is right. The interviews with Don Charles, and I don't know how many we ended up doing in total, but the interviews with Don Charles were great. He is such a fantastic person, and you talk about a guy whose heart is in the right place, and who always wants to use any opportunity to speak for good things and to try to spread a message. I mean, Don Charles is a great guy, and he really, really cares about his people. I mean, it's nothing but admiration for him. Nothing but. Peter Fury's a great guy too. I like the interview. I regret not getting on the Enzo Calzaghe interview. I had something going, and Donnie managed to fucking bottle that up in about 25 seconds.
Yeah, thanks, buddy. Yeah, well, if you want to get back and do interviews for us anytime, you certainly have a natural knack for them.
Enzo's a fan of the show, isn't he?
Enzo Calzaghe? I don't know about that.
Oh, I thought. No, Enzo Mack.
Enzo Mack listens to the show, but I know Enzo Calzaghe is a nightmare to understand. Absolute fucking nightmare.
Yeah, I remember that interview. I couldn't understand the damn thing he said.
The thing is, the worst it, Donnie was on a 5-second delay. I think you were doing an interview for your car, Donnie, I think.
Yes, that's correct. Yes, I was.
Oh, I couldn't believe it. And then you fucking started talking about Carol Froch, and he's like, eh!
Oh, God.
Thanks, Donnie. Only joking. Well done. Thanks for the memories there, Matt. Just moving on. Who else have we got on here? Gabe, tell me about the Mares Santa Cruz fight. I wanted to see the both guys fighting each other, to be honest. Looking last night, do you see the reason why they had a tune-up? I think they got about $750,000 each, right? I mean, is that a proper figure? That's ridiculous if true.
No, it's fucking ridiculous. Fuck Leo Santa Cruz. Not so much Mares, but Santa Cruz definitely. Just because I like Mares more. That's the only reason, really. It was ridiculous.
Well, I know also Mares never explicitly ducked Rigo the way Santa Cruz did. I know that's a sticking point for you.
Absolutely. $3 million.
That's a big
$3 million he fucking said with a straight face to fight Rigondo. Think about it. I'll say it again, just so you make sure you understand it. $3 million fucking dollars. What's Lomachenko fighting for?
Well, based on what he's getting paid for fighting stiffs, he probably wants that for, you know what I mean? He's doing it pro rata. He's getting $750 for fighting nobody. He must want $3 million for fighting Rigo, and he beat Rigo. And it makes it hard to root for Santa Cruz based on him ducking Rigo, to me anyway.
That's pure cuntish behavior. That's pure cuntish behavior. That one, like.
I have to wonder.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why it drives me so crazy about the whole situation. But in regards to the fight last night, I mean, let's be honest. They didn't do anything in my mind that was either person, anything that was of the utmost amazing behavior. I mean, they beat guys that they should have beat. I would have preferred to see, a little bit more, but it is what it is. They won and they were supposed to win. I mean, it's completely absurd that they sat as long as they have to need a tune-up fight, number one. So fuck Al Heyman for that. And number two, the big issue that I have with it is that they should have just been facing each other to start with. I mean, forget the interim match. Now, when are they supposed to fight? Is there a set date for it? I'm sure it'll be March or something, or May before that happens.
Ridiculous, isn't it?
So,
Yeah, you mean they ostensibly needed these.
Maybe Cinco de Mayo or something, just to drag it a wee bit longer.
Yeah, but then they ostensibly needed these tune-ups because they were so inactive. So you keep them this inactive, of course they're just going to need tune-up. Like once a year, we'll have a tune-up fight and then never fight anybody else because we're always so inactive. I can't stand Al's system. It's killing.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
Guys, they should be jumping ship.
That's what I was going to say. Where the fuck's this money coming from for Al Heyman? Because there's apparently Errol Spence been offered a Cotto fight to sign with Golden Boy, rejected that, and apparently Heyman's offering $3.5 million for his next fight. He's been on the shelf since the summer. He's not going to be fighting until January. Apparently, that's fucking disgraceful.
It's ridiculous.
He just jumps up to world level and stops Kell Brook, probably one of the best welterweight fighters, and they just don't capitalize on the momentum at all. Terrible.
Well, he has no idea what he's doing, and I think that's been fairly apparent from the beginning. I mean, he's made some good fights. Let's be perfectly realistic here. There have been some good fights. There have been some good fights on paper that he's put together that turned out to be shitfests, and for no other reason and no fault of his own, the fight just didn't combust like it should have, or like most people expected him to. So he's put on some good fights, but it's more of a happenstance most of the time. Whenever it's just a side note. Oh yeah, by the way, we put together this fight and it was a really good fight. You know, he just consistently screws the pooch by having a guy like Errol Spence, who should be one of the hottest properties in the sport. And the more he sits out with these long layoffs, the more potential earning power he's losing every time. You know, if you keep a guy active, then you see more consistent paydays across the board. You know, they may not be those $5, $6, $7 million paydays for fights that he shouldn't have, but in the long term, he's still making money, and he's making more money because he's being more active. And then you got to look at the money that Al's missing out on too. I mean, he's making money off of this shit one way or the other. You know, maybe not right now, or maybe it was part of the plan later on at some point to be making the money, but you simply just can't do it. It's poor promotion. It's poor for the fighter. It's poor for everyone. Unfortunately, at this point, Errol Spence is kind of screwing the pooch as well because he's listening to what that dumbass Heyman is telling him. So I don't know. In my mind, it's just complete absurdity that we saw what we saw last night. Whenever it was a primetime slot for boxing, you know, on a Saturday evening on Fox Network here in the States, that's where Charlo should have been. That's where, you know, Trout and Hurd should have been. Why would we waste it on those meaningless, you know, tune-up fights? It just makes no sense at all. We had premiere fights on Showtime and then shitfests on Fox, you know, network television. It makes no sense. There's nothing about any of it that makes sense.
Yeah, Matty, go ahead, then Dave.
It makes perfect sense. Al Heyman pays to put the content on Fox, and he makes his money back through advertising. And Showtime pays Al Heyman for content. It makes perfect sense. And as much as it sucks, $750,000 minus your trainer's fees and managers and all that stuff, I mean, taxes and everything, you still end up with tidy $250,000, you know, to basically fight someone on TV who you would use for sparring under normal circumstances. It sucks, but it makes perfect sense. It's an easy living.
I don't think it makes good boxing sense, though, because as Gabe was saying, consistent paydays, I was thinking consistent performances, the more active you stay. These guys like Trout, I mean, you never know what he's going to be because he fights so inactively. You never know which Trout's going to show up. Is he going to be finally done here because it's been 18 months since we've seen him? How about Gary Russell Jr. never fights? I mean, what the hell kind of form can we expect from this guy if we don't see him? And we even forget how he fights. We forget everything.
Well, you have to admit that the PVC fights have been starting to get better. I mean, there are crap like this, obviously, that weren't too great. But as it's gone on, the Heyman fights have started to get better and better. And, you know, he's dropping back talent here and there and keeping this and that, trying to add and stuff. But it seems like he's starting to get more of a core roster that he wants to focus on, and there's some people, for whatever reason, he's casting aside. But I think what you're seeing is he bought up a huge amount of talent, spent a ton of money at the beginning, and he was able to use that and, find talent in their own ways that they're doing it, obviously. And at this point in time, you're starting to see not the finished product, but you're starting to see the cream rise to the top, and you're going to see a small handful of fighters that Heyman is able to get some good fights out of. And if you look at what he's doing, he's occupying a lot of real estate between 140 and 160 pounds, which leaves you, if those guys stay under contract with folks jumping up weights, you have, a lot of intriguing matchups with people going through the weights over the next 5 years with that roster.
You finished, Dave?
It's been a pretty good year for the Heyman stable. I feel like it's been despite Al Heyman, though. Like, I think the fighters have made it good, and some of the matchups have been good. Just the activity it's insufferable. And also I would say that most of this year's good content from the Heyman side of things has been on Showtime. Showtime's had a very good year, especially when you compare it with HBO's very lackluster year and poor management. Showtime's look great, and PBC has kind of gotten the dregs.
Well, shout out to Espinoza for that. I've been a big fan of what he's done with Showtime. I think back in the day when we had the forum, when we talk about HBO and Showtime, and it back then, in my mind, this is relatively a few years ago, so it's a relatively short amount of time. I always felt like HBO was the premier place for boxing, and now what do they do? Like, they put on pay-per-view fights? When's the last time that they've had a consistent year where they've had good fights all year long? It's been a little while. HBO is not the premier place anymore. I think Showtime has filled that void and done really well. Their production is beautiful now. Their production, even everything about it, about the two differences between the two networks, was all HBO's favor. Now everything's shifted to Showtime, and I'll tell the truth. I don't subscribe to HBO anymore because they don't put shit on. So why?
HBO, though, it seems like they're shifting their focus to a few weight classes, a few fighters, and instead of putting on, so many cards throughout the year that, good fighters and crap fights, what they're starting to do is try to just put on good cards top to bottom as much as they can. That card in July with, with Maura on it, I mean, that didn't shape up the way we wanted it to, but the Superfly card is great. Canelo and Golovkin, they're worthy properties to be investing in, obviously.
Pay-per-view.
Lemieux is a good, so they're investing in some stuff that could be good for them. But what you're seeing is the after effects of HBO is almost reacting too far to one side of the coin after getting shafted for years and years by numerous promoters in overpaying for shit content. Okay? This isn't a Golden Boy and a Top Rank and a Heyman thing. It's really not even a Heyman thing. This is, he was the manager, so we'll leave him in there. But you have to think about some of the ridiculous amounts of money. $750,000 for these fights was nothing. HBO was dishing out, $2 million to some fighters to fight junk years ago. And it's a reaction to seeing the numbers and saying, we've been getting fucked by these promoters demanding too much money. And HBO is putting downward pressure on fighter purses right now, which is forcing promoters like Bob Arum to explore new and old avenues such as ESPN.
Yeah, didn't Berto get like $2 million to fight somebody like in front of 500 people in Florida?
$1.25 million to fight Freddie Hernandez. I remember
that always sticks with that.
He got loads for fighting Cosme Rivera. He was always overpaid on the way up, wasn't he, Berto?
What did he get for fighting Floyd? $5 million, and he was absolutely fucking shite.
Yeah, Berto is pretty endemic of what was wrong with the purses that were getting paid out. They had a fighter that they would try to hype up that could be something, so they fed him, a bunch of nobodies and got ridiculous paydays. And the fact that Berto was still collecting really strong paydays from HBO after Collazo exposed him was no fault of anyone's but HBO's. If they can't do enough on their own to decide that somebody's not worth investing in as a property at that value, that's their own fault. Berto's a fun fighter, but he was never going to be any more than a paper title holder at any given point.
Excellent stuff, Matty. Let's move on. Final bits and pieces before we get into the previews, and we'll race through them, I think, and then on to Bellew of the Week. We shall then leave. Rob Kelly's left. No Tommy Allen tonight. We have got Ozzy, though. We've got Matty. We've got Gabe, Andy, Donny, Dave the Hater Lowback, and Adam Smido-Smith. Ozzy, I don't suppose you saw anything of this next gen card on Friday night. I didn't actually watch it.
I did actually, yeah. Yeah, it was one of them. Bellotti Cunningham was really good, really enjoyable. Bellotti, his biggest test today, and he was losing the fight, but what a finish. What a finish. And he's going to be one of those. Bellotti, he can obviously punch. I mean, Eddie Hearn was saying after it that he's one of the biggest punchers in the world at featherweight. That's absolute bullshit, that. At the end of the day, he stopped Jason Cunningham. Really good stoppage, but to come out with outrageous bullshit like that is just bollocks. But I think the story of the night was he was 28 on the undercard called, I think it was Eric Israel. Now, he was making his pro debut boxing against one of these up-and-coming prospects called William Webber. Now, he's from Nigeria and he came over to study a university degree. Anyway, he walked into a gym, was inspired, started boxing. Anyway, he's put his masters on hold to do 4 years in the pro game, whether that's going on the road or to try and do what he can. Anyway, he's going to chin this prospect in I think it was the third round, and he looked really basic, really raw, but he looks like he can dig. Anyway, after it, he said that his family have no idea that he actually boxes. So, and he's ended up on Primetime Sky on a Friday night, chinning some young kid to win his pro debut. So he seemed a really good guy in the interview, and he could be one to watch. He's obviously got power, and it was a real fun fight. Aside from that, I thought Ted Cheeseman, he's a prospect, that Matchroom. Don't blow smoke up his arse, but he's one of the best ones they've got. He looks a real talent, and he just goes about his business quiet. He's not a talker, and I know there was a bit of a joke about his last name, but I think this guy's legit. I think he's at light middle, so it's an okay division at British level. So, yeah, it'd be good to see him move up, but I'm not for these next-gen cards. I think lads like Conor Benn should be on these, not co-main in chief support on on these big cards. These are cards for like Conor Benn, the young kids, not Ted Cheeseman, who's the English champion. He should be defending his title on that, if anything. Not boxing some Panamanian guy who's been brought over to give him a test. Defend his English title, box for an eliminator or something like that. So I don't understand why we don't utilise the lads in the country to make the fights rather than just making a main event and that's it. Charlie Edwards was on it. Should have been boxing for a fringe WBA belt. His opponent pulled out, I think it's something like 7 o'clock on Thursday night or something like that. That says it all about his opponent, who obviously was never turning up. So I'm not a fan of these, but I thought the main event was decent, and obviously, but I thought the Eric Israel was the story of the night for obviously his story about his family having no idea he boxes, and he chinned a lad on Primetime Sky.
Yeah, a good story indeed. A few guys have been a bit critical of Eddie, as usual. Dom Hemingway was on the Twitter. He said, people talk about how great Hearn is, but why is he so poor at making domestic fights? I think that stands to what Ozzy was talking about there. Maybe we want to see a few more English or British title fights. Talking of Commonwealth level title fights, Smido, Friday night, Friday the 13th, Big Russ, matchmaking, Dennis Hobson Promotions, Free Sports TV, Channel 424 on Sky. Watched a bit of this myself on Saturday morning. Quite an entertaining affair between Liam Cameron and Sam Sheedy. Sheedy hit the deck multiple times. I think he lost a 10-5 round in round 4, wasn't it? It was quite the spectacle.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to give massive credit to Hobson and Rush, seriously, you have, because they've managed to get it on free, as part of your Sky package. A brand new channel, I think it's called Free Sports. I've never heard of it. Tuned in Friday night. and Sam Sheedy's there with no interest at all in blocking punches. No interest whatsoever. He was just taking punches to his face with his hands down by his side. And then, Cameron's got the better of him in the end, but the atmosphere looked good. There's plenty of tickets sold, with the traditional tables ringside. No aggro, a Sheffield derby. And Liam Cameron just looked like he'd got it right on the, again, he's one of them that, and Sheedy could possibly included in this as well, that, have took fights at late notice or not been concentrating or distractions outside the ring. Liam Cameron on Friday night got it right. He looked big at the weight. He looked fit at the weight. I saw a before and after picture. I think he fought in Australia, Cameron, at the same weight and looked a bag of nails. And it was, on Friday night, he looked superb and he's got the job done. But, I mean, Sheedy he said after the fight, someone's either got to step in to stop me from getting myself hurt, or they're going to have to carry me out, and that's what had to happen in the end. I mean, there was multiple times when that fight could have been stopped, and he was getting battered about the ring, but he still managed to make it to the end of a given round, and then managed to. A minute wasn't quite long enough, but it was long enough for him to at least stand up for the next round, kind of.
What
thing.
about his headbutts, Smiddo? The way he was dropping those headbutts.
Oh, it was like watching Zinedine Zidane. I think that was part of the 10-5 round. Yeah, he got knocked down 3 times and he got a point taken off. I think.
Yeah.
I think that was it. Yeah, it just headbutted him to the chest, casually. But yeah, I mean, Sheedy's going to struggle from here, to be honest. But Cameron, if he can maybe step up and get on, one of the Sky shows, something like that, as Hobson has done, many times before with his fighters, get a full camp and full preparation. He could be a threat. But you have honestly got to give the guys credit for trying something new. And Dennis was quite animated after the fight, saying this is not extra. You ain't got to pay any pay-per-view, anything like that. And hopefully they've hit the figures. And they can do it again. I think the Free Sports said that they're going to do one a month.
Yes, the next one's in Jersey, I think, Smiddo.
Yeah, so we know that
Nice
Dennis
speed tax haven, nice speed tax drop off there.
Yeah, Dennis and Russ do some business out there, but yeah, fair play. I've been texting Russ this week, and I've just said really the lads from here need to get down to his next one in Sheffield. We really do. I'm keen to go, so let's get it sorted, boys.
I was going to go to that one actually, but I think it got changed from the Friday to the Saturday. But if it was for the Friday, I was up for that one.
Yeah.
But
yeah, that's what did me. I'm better on Saturday nights, but yeah, it got changed to the Friday, so that's what did it for me. But yeah, next time we need to go.
Yeah, if anybody interested in hearing the behind-the-scenes stuff on that show, I'm going to try and do a Balls Deep with Russ this week, half-an-hour show that we put out on the YouTube channel, so keep an eye out for that. I know there's a lot of hate for that, but I'm just going to keep doing them anyway. I don't give a shit.
Patreon.
Oh, yeah, Patreon. Don't forget about Patreon as well. Plenty coming up. Lewis Schmeling this week dropped, Andy.
Yeah, it was, I can only go off the subscribers' comments, but it's 36 strong. They seem to be quite happy with it. Here, Dave, what the fuck was all that disclaimer about? Was that you?
No, that was Mr. Keith David, a very famous 80s actor. You'll hear the fine vocal tones of that black man.
I have no idea who he is, so if he's black, white, or fucking purple, I don't know who he is.
Keith David was in the movie Platoon. He was in the famous They Live with this, where he fights what's his name, Roddy Piper, over wearing sunglasses.
Roddy Piper, the wrestler.
Yeah.
So he's a serious actor, then I take it. Right?
He was also in the very underrated, very wonderful The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing. He's one of the few survivors along with Kurt Russell.
Right, okay. Steve, move on, mate.
Yeah, this is took a turn for the bizarre. Right, Donny, let's bring things back on track. You're always the main man to with your added brevity to get us back on the right road. Next Saturday night, 21st of October, Oscar De La Hoya is promoting in the Turning Stone Resort and Casino in Verona, New York. Demetrius Andrade, Donny, is moving up to middleweight, his first foray into the middleweight weight limit against Alantez Fox. Never heard of him, 23-0. What do you think about Andrade's career prospects, Donny? He needs to keep a bit more active, doesn't he?
If he can keep active, I think that he could give problems to anyone in the middleweight division. Anyone. And I'd love to see him mix it up with Jacobs, who, of course, HBO now has signed to a long-term deal. I guess HBO has done a deal, I guess, with Hearn, right, to help launch his new promotional venture here. So if we could see him in with Jacobs, and if he could maybe do the business against Jacobs, maybe we could see him mix it up with Canelo or Golovkin. But to see him in that mix would be very exciting. And regarding Fox, I know I've seen him a few times before. If I remember right, he also is kind of long and lanky. And he also may be a former 154-pound fighter. I'm off the top of my head, I can't remember where I've seen him last, but I've actually seen him in person at some point. But anyways, I'm just excited to see what Andre looks like after a long time off, and whether he will live up to everything that we thought he could be. And his stylistically, I think, as a lot of people have said, he does pose problems for Golovkin, Canelo, those types of fighters. So if he can sort of make it so that there's a mandate for one of those big names to fight him by going out there, keeping active, and plowing through the other guys in the top 10 at the division, if he can make that statement, he'll the likes of Canelo and Golovkin will be hard pressed to ignore him.
Also on that card, Gabe, fresh from a hit-and-miss defence against Robertson Castellanos, we have the WBA World Super Featherweight Champion Jezreel Corrales defending his title against Alberto Machado. 18-0, 15 knockouts from Puerto Rico, a bit of an unknown quantity.
I didn't hear all of your questions.
Yeah, just talking about Jezreel Corrales, Gabe, defending against Alberto Machado on the same card. How do you think this one will go? You hearing me, Gabe?
Sounds like he's having technical problems there, Steve.
Yeah. Do you want to jump in on this one, hey, to Dave Loback?
Sure. This is the one where both guys were Jezreel Corrales. He's the guy they were both. He was against Castellanos. They were both dropped, right? And then it was a good fight, and then it ended with disappointing technical decision.
Yes.
Right. Okay. I think you should give Castellanos a rematch. But Corrales looked quite vulnerable in that fight. Castellanos is solid, but I mean he showed that when he dealt with Gamboa. He's solid, but I don't think if you're not dealing with him handily, I don't think you're going to be a star. And this Machado guy is undefeated, so he's unknown. It's sort of a 50-50 fight. I would have rather seen the Castellanos rematch before this, but we will see. Jezreel Corrales, I mean, he looked like something when he beat Uchiyama, but since then, not been that impressed. So Machado can win this, but I mean, I don't know enough about either guy to really make a precise call or say how the fight's going to go. I think it's just a pick 'em.
To pick 'em, says Dave. Rob Kelly's back with us. Rob, Ryan Burnett will be unifying with Janat Zakianov in Belfast next Saturday evening. I shall be ringside for this spectacular event. Don't worry too much about the undercard. What about the main event? I actually think that Burnett's going to stop Zakianov late, maybe 11th or 12th round. What do you think about that prediction?
Yeah, I think he could be onto something. Looked very impressive in the last time out. He's at that level now, isn't he? I thought it was a little bit early for him the last time, but he's at that level now, isn't he? So we're gonna see about him. I think it's a good test for him. I think he probably should stop him. He's got the crowd behind him there and all that. Like, he's a superstar. He'll be feeling mega confident, and he's shown again he's a bit of a finisher. So let's see.
Ozzy, what about you, Burnett Zakianov? Do you think it's going to be a good fight? I think Zakianov comes forward in straight lines. He will bring the fight, but he showed against Warren he can be dropped, he can be vulnerable.
Yeah, I think Burnett will beat him. I think one thing is with Adam Booth, he's not a man who takes huge risks with his fighters, and they ran up Zakianov before he won the world title, and I think it's a perfect opportunity for a unification. I think he'll beat him. I think both guys could get cut. Zakianov, like you said, he bulldozes his way forward. He's going to get in closer. I wouldn't be shocked if Burnett hit the deck in this as well. But I think overall, Burnett will have too much. It'll either be a wide point or he'll stop him late on.
Yeah, this fight's also being shown as part of a triple header in America on HBO, as far as I'm aware, so that should be interesting enough. Andy, we're hot-footing over to Leeds here next Saturday night. There's plenty going on next weekend. It's packed again. Josh Warrington against Dennis Ceylan. Bit of a strange career Warrington's had. He's clearly being protected, isn't he?
Yeah, he's ducked Selby at least twice for it, I remember. Beat up on a smallish fucking Martinez. Paddy Highland, I suppose, you know Paddy Highland better than what I do, mate. I'm a gasser. Well, we all knew what he was all about. And then Shailen, at the end of the day, I remember watching his fight against Isaac Love. I've watched a few of his fights. He went life and death with Ryan Walsh. He knocked out Walter Estrada, who's seen better days by that point. Against Lowe, I think he looked for a kind of way out after the cut, actually. And of course, he went to technical decision. I'm going to say that Warrington's going to win this wide in points. I think he'll be too busy for Shailen. Shailen, he was okay amateur back in the day. I think he'd been to the Olympics in 2012 and stuff. But Warrington should have this. He's talking a lot of trash at the minute, saying people are ducking him and Selby, for example, etc. But for what we know, you went away and got married rather than fight Lee Selby. So don't fucking talk to us about ducking anybody, all right? You fucking went away and got married because the Lee Selby fight was there for you. You went away and got married instead of it. Pussy was more important to you than getting paid or fighting for world titles. So didn't give that shit. So we'll wait and see what happens after this. But I think after this fight, they need to make a move with him because he's 25-0 at the minute, 26-0, whatever it is. He's not going to improve any better unless he's going to hang around European level. But we all know featherweight's looking really stacked at the minute, so he's going to really have a really hard time trying to pick up a world title bubble there. If you go through the list and that, I know Frampton's not on weight, but if you look at like the champs and stuff, Santa Cruz, Gary Russell, Selby, Valdez, none of them are going to have any problems, in my opinion, with fucking Josh Warrington, in my opinion.
Yeah, friend of the pod, Darren Tetley's fighting on that show as well next week, so good luck to him. Gabe, are you hearing me okay now, Gabe?
Yeah,
excellent stuff. Right, Gabe, tell me about next Sunday, 22nd of October in Japan. Don't worry, I'm not hitting you with a blindside shot here. Hassan and Dam, many people thought he was lucky to beat Ryota Murata in their first contest. They're having a rematch for the WBA middleweight title. Do you think Murata will get the job done this time in his home country, Gabe?
I'm not sure. I think the first fight was really good, and I was kind of in agreement with a lot of people that Murata won that fight. But N'Dam is a crafty veteran fighter, and I think that he can definitely adjust and make adjustments, and possibly is smart enough to outwit Murata. I've seen most of all Murata's fights, and he's solid, but kind of, to me, in some ways, unspectacular. Not that he's not an excellent fighter. I mean, obviously, he's at world level fighting a guy for a world title. And in my mind, that's a signal of something. I mean, you're not going to get there most of the time by being a bum nobody. So I think Murata's good, but I think N'Dam may pull off the legitimate victory this time. It's just I'm not really sure exactly what he'll come out looking like, Murata. But I think N'Dam will, after he's seen him once, he'll know what to do. He'll know how to react, and he'll have a more solid game plan in place to kind of have his way more than he did in the first fight. So I'm actually going to pick N'Dam on that one. Nothing against Murata there. Should be a good, fun fight too.
Yeah, friend of the pod, Joe O'Neill, has made me aware of an excellent Japanese lightweight title fight taking place next Saturday. Shuichiro Yoshino takes on Spicy Matsushita. So that should be an interesting one to keep an eye out for.
I think we were talking about Ken Shiro against Pedro Guevara, actually. That's a light flyweight title fight, I think, next week.
Oh, that's right. That is on the same card. Yeah, give us a word about that one, actually, Andy, while you're at it. You think Shiro will get the job done there?
Well, I think so. I mean, at the end of the day, if you look at Guevara's record, I think he's been mixing about world level. But Shiro, I think he's only mid-20s or something, and he's only had a handful of fights.
25 with 10 fights.
There you go. am I right to say there was a guy, but who's it he fought in his last fight? Was it Lopez something? Maybe a majority decision, but he's a world champ or something like that at the minute. Guevara's obviously, he's been knocking around about the door at world level for many years. I'm trying to remember if he's ever been a world champion. Might have been at one point actually a couple of years back and stuff. But I would say Cheryl's at that point. He's going to do the business here. I think he's going to do it in points.
We'll come back to you on Higa very shortly in Japan. Before we do, Andy, let's go to Adam Smido-Smith. Proper fight on this Leeds undercard. I'm looking forward to this one. I suppose I'll have to watch it on Saturday morning. Actually, Tyrone Nurse defending his title against Jack Catchell, defending his British title. That'll be a good fight, I think.
Well, Tyrone Knight Nurse and Jack Catchell ain't the most exciting, so I think that it is a real test for Catchell, and it's about time that that he stepped up. He's the kid who beat Stalker, yeah. And then and then has not really done a whole lot since. So yeah, we're gonna find out. We're gonna find out about Catchell. I was there actually the night he fought Geffen, and Geffen shot to shit. Nurse is I wouldn't say a handful, but is a difficult puzzle to solve for anyone. To be fair, so let's see how Catchell gets on. It might not be the most exciting. The one I want to comment on, Steve, is this Ryan Burnett. This is not an easy night for Ryan Burnett, let me tell you. I just think that what he's coming up against Zakionov, he's not met anything like that in his career. He's not come up against anything like the relentlessness, the power. It's a massive banana skin this could be.
Yeah, I think he might have done, Smido. I think they've sparred numerous rounds together.
All right, fair enough. I was unaware of that, but as someone mentioned earlier, Adam Booth will be making calculated decisions, and clearly they're not going into this thinking that they're going to lose, obviously. But I just think that Burnett. I'm not fully convinced on him yet, and I will be picking Zakionov.
No, I think, Smido, when I made my stoppage prediction, I wasn't envisaging an easy night. It was a stoppage at the end of a really hard fight. Both guys cut, like Ozzy mentioned, I think, or Rob. Both guys may be down, and Zakionov just walks onto something. I don't expect it to be easy for Burnett up until that point.
Yeah, I think you could be right. I just don't know if Burnett's, I don't know if his chin's really proven. I know he's only young. This could be an upset on the cards here. I do think that. And Zakionov, he reminds, and he'll probably remind others of a bit like Provodnikov. Don't give a fuck. He's not the youngest. I think he's 33. He's just gonna have to go for it. And I think that's what he will do. Is this a voluntary, Steve?
It's a unification. It's IBF for Burnett, and McDonnell has the WBA World Bantamweight, and Zakionov has the Super WBA.
Oh, that's super, by name and by nature. But yeah, Warrington, who cares? He's just another person. I say this most weeks now. He's boxed himself into an absolute irrelevance. It looks like Frank's got about bloody 15 fights on that card as well. I do like Zelfa Barrett. I'm big on Zelfa Barrett, so I think he's going for the English title. He needs to start getting moving now, to be honest, Barrett. He's only 24 as well. I saw him in a real world-class performance, I thought, earlier in the year. And I am going off BoxRec here, Steve. I'm not as good as you reeling these names off, but Eusebio Ossie Joe. That I've really enjoyed that earlier in the year. I remember reporting it on here.
It was on Box Nation, wasn't it, there?
Yeah, it was on a Friday night on Box Nation. And if I'm not mistaken, that was the same night that... in a sports hall in Bolton, actually a hotel in Bolton, where we saw the chief support to Zelfa Barrett that night was Alexander Ustinov against Zumbano Love. Now that's what in a couple of years,
right.
When we're still going, that's one of them that you should bring up as a bit of a queer fight taking place at a silly venue with two big lumpy heavyweights. But Zelfa Barrett, looking forward to that. What's on the international scene next week?
We've got Gassiev against Vlodarchik, which I'm coming to. That's on the World Boxing Super Series. We've got Corrales and Andrade in the Oscar De La Hoya show.
Oh, I'm hot on Andrade. Why has he been out so long?
Promotional issues, wasn't he? I think he ended up re-signing for the same company he was fighting with in the end, or something.
I won't be surprised. But no, it's good to see him in action, and I think it was Donny said earlier he's going to be a threat to anyone at middleweight. I do believe that as well. I really like Andrade.
Smido really likes Andre. Talking to big heavyweight lumps, Aussie next Friday night. David Hay returns to Dave TV. We've got Joe Joyce making his debut against Ian Lewison. He's not hanging around, Joyce, is he?
No, and I think this is what we want to see. He's an Olympian, and we're not seeing him with any of these puddings. He's going in at the deep end of sort. Ian Lewison, if he turns up in shape, is no mug, and he can punch and really hit hard. That saying, I think it could be a fight that makes Joyce look very, very good, but it's by no means an easy feat. It's a 10-rounder. He's topping the bill, and I think they've already said that they want the winner of Lenroy Thomas against Dave Allen for his second fight. So they're not hanging around with Joe Joyce, but for me, it's not going to be an easy one. And I'm not saying he will win it, but I wouldn't be shocked if Ian Lewison certainly drops him, but could beat him as well. That saying, I do think Joyce will have enough to beat him, but it wouldn't surprise me at all. Lewison, if he turns up in shape, will be a tough fight for him. But it's what we want to see. They talk big about these Olympians. Let's chuck him in at the deep end. Not with these Anthony Fowler plumbers that he's beating up and then saying he's an elite level. Fair play to Joyce and fair play to David Hay and his promotional team. They're putting the money where the mouth is. They've got a decent opponent. I'll look forward to it.
Well said, Ozzy. Rob Kelly also on that card. John O'Donnell from Galway fights Zimbabwe's Tamuka Mucha for the English title. We love the belts, don't we here? Mucha actually beat Paddy Gallagher a couple of fights ago. How do you see this one going, Rob? Do you even care?
Nope.
What about...
I'm not up on either of them, actually.
I was going to say about Joyce. What do you think about Joyce? Do you like the speed that he's being brought along? We don't need to see these guys hanging around, do we?
Wants to see him. They don't want to bring him the AJ route, do they? Where they're going to have him knock out like 50 and build him up. Let him build up just nicely. He's a lot of people are going kind of the Lomachenko route. Like sometimes it can be difficult. You have to learn the pro ropes too. But this guy amateur pedigree to show that he can hang above that level to begin with. So let's fast track him.
Well said,
David
Robert.
Price next.
Yep, Dave. Good call. Hey to Dave. Dave, tell me this. New Jersey, next Saturday night, we have Murat Gassiev, 24-0, going in against the old Polish veteran, Krzysztof Wlodarczyk for the IBF Cruiserweight title.
New Jersey, of all places.
Yeah, exactly. It's a bit of a strange one, although Gassiev does train, I think, in the Golovkin camp, so he's US-based. So it's a bit like Dortico fighting Kudryashov, isn't it, wherever that took place? Was it Texas or something?
I didn't know that he was based in the US. I figured he was just another Russian.
Coming over to hack you all.
Wlodarczyk is one of those guys. He just keeps coming back up for more. And oftentimes he's successful. I remember... I think Andy said he'll never pick against him again after he upset Chakiev. Chakiev has since proven to be both kind of idiotic in his tactics and a bit glassed to the body and head. But at the time, that was quite a statement from Wlodarczyk, is saying, "I'm still here." He went on to get several more wins until he met Drozd. Speaking of Drozd, he hasn't fought since 2015. Is he retired or injured or something?
I think he's injured. Wasn't he the mandatory for Tony Bellew when he was WBC champion? And then he gave up so many mandatory spots, and then he got some recess thing, and Bradis came in and took the title when Bellew vacated, I think.
Yeah, because Drozd, I mean, if he weren't injured or retired, he should have been in this tournament. But Wlodarczyk is instead, and he's still got several wins in the period between losing to Drozd. Gassiev, though, I mean, he's sort of a big, giant Margarito type, isn't he? He kind of comes forward clubbing with his significant physical advantages, and he's got good power. He's got a good chin. He took murderous shots from Lebedev. Is this his first fight since Lebedev? I think it is. So I think, again, we might have a situation of inactivity here. Wlodarczyk's been more active. I'm going to go with Gassiev just based on being a physical beast. Maybe you can get him to the body, put Wlodarczyk down a couple times, and probably win convincingly enough on points. But it's not a bad fight, even though I don't think Wlodarczyk is proven. I don't think he's elite level at cruiserweight, but I think he's a good fighter. And Gassiev is crude enough that he's in this fight. So I think it should be fun to watch. Both guys are going to take leather.
Andy, just before you close us out with Diego Higa against Thomas Masson, we expect Higa to win that one. Do you want to say a quick word about Gassiev against Wlodarczyk? I remember Wlodarczyk fighting against Steve Cunningham back in Poland in 2006, and Glencoff Johnson was on the commentary team, and he had that much trouble pronouncing Wlodarczyk's surname, he just ended up calling him Diablo for the whole fight.
Yep, that's what I do, mate. Call him Diablo. That's his surname. Well, that's his nickname, sorry. The guy's had, I don't know if people know this, but the guy's actually had a lot of mental health problems early years and stuff. So you wouldn't have boxing's actually the game for him. But as Dave says, he's past his prime. Against Cunningham, I think he fought Cunningham twice, I think. Cunningham beat him twice.
Well, Cunningham lost the decision once, but I think we all know he won both.
He won the fight, in my opinion. But I think Gassiev will stop him late, probably around the 10th or 11th round, maybe the body shot or whatever. And that, again, it depends what Diablo's got left. Which, to be honest, at this point in his career, it's not going to be much. He generally is tough and durable, but that was like 3-4 years ago. So I would think, considering that Gassiev's new into his physical prime, I would expect him to stop Diablo. I'm disappointed with Disney. Diego Higa, again, I'm really high in this guy. He seems to be giving Inoue a lot of problems in sparring. Thomas Maison, I think he's an French ex-European champion and stuff. So,
yes.
Again, I really don't know. Mason's he's got a few defeats, not been stopped, but he's not really got a punch either. And again, at these lower weights and stuff like that, especially in the European countries and stuff, you didn't really get a lot of flyweight fighters that's going to actually, enough to kind of, basically tune yourself up against. So you've got to take these kind of tougher fights, early on in your career, like Selby, for example. Gonzalez is another one. But I would think Higa might stop him. I'm going to go for like 8th or 9th round stoppage for Diego Higa. Who else we got in the undercard?
Which undercard? The Japanese one?
Yeah.
That's the N'Dam one that Gabe was talking about against Murata, the rematch.
Is that the one with Guevara on it as well?
That's the one, yeah.
No problem.
Any thoughts on N'Dam, Andy, now?
Just hopefully justice gets served this time round about. I thought Murata, off that first fight, that was the main reason my dialogue with Mr. Mendoza, the WBA, ceased to exist. He wouldn't return my emails. He blocked me on Twitter. I was severely pissed off. In fact, it got so bad actually that he actually had to tag me into the tweet saying, "Is Andy Patterson right? Did Murata get robbed?" And everybody I think everybody in the system says he got fucking robbed. That was a clear victory to Ryder Murata. Disgraceful decision. It should have been overturned. He should have been the champion. He gets the chance to kind of right the wrong, and it better happen this time. But because it says it was disgusting how that fucking fight got scored, it was a clear victory for Murata.
Yep, I agree with that. Right, let's get on to Bellew of the Weeks, and then we shall get out of here. It's 10:10. We're not doing too badly considering the amount of boxing that is coming our way this week and next. Sean Anslow has nominated Zishan Khan. Errol Spence says, I've been told that Al Heyman is lining them up at 147. Anybody in the top 5? Zishan Khan says Chris Eubank Jr. Okay, then. Who have we got here? We have, who nominated it? Stephen D nominated Tony Bellew. He's talking about sex offenders again. Oh, no thanks, Tony. Ricky Burns, what a fight me and Anthony Crolla had. Just watched it back. On the night, I thought I'd done enough. But watching it back, I scored it to draw. What an atmosphere in there. Let's get this rematch sorted. I don't know who wants to see that. Hater Dave certainly doesn't.
Let's get that payday sorted.
Let's get it sorted. Steve Bunt, this was nominated from Danny Robson. It's quite a funny one. Hearing about the death of a former British champion, a true pioneer in the 70s and 80s, a good fighter in any era. Details soon. Danny Robson says, it's like he's got a transfer deadline day scoop or something.
Exactly. Who was it?
I don't know. I didn't see.
What a prick. I mean, imagine even fucking putting that out there, some sort of kind of scoop.
I don't know who it was. I didn't hear anything more about it. So whoever it was must have turned themselves around, unfortunately.
I bet Bunch runs a kind of ghoul pool at work and that. Like, what celebrity's going to die this year and what fucking day it is and that. What a fiend.
Michael Frayn has nominated Big Russ. Big Russ put out a tweet saying that Jaffa, who's this? Phil Phil Jeffries, Jaffa, is no mug. He won't lose Lewis Ritson to the likes of Hearn, like Josh Kelly. And then a few days later, Eddie Hearn tweets out, very excited to announce the signing of new British champion Lewis Ritson to the Matchroom boxing team. So an L for Big Russ on that one, unfortunately. I'm sure he'll take it well. Boris has nominated Macho Grande for comments made on Next Big Pod. He's also nominated Jamie Cox, who says, I'm only a middleweight. I make middleweight no problem. Okay, that was before the Groves fight. John Rawling has been nominated from Joey at Master Mode. He says to Daniel Dubois, you jab like Larry Holmes and you can go all the way, Daniel. He was some fighter back in the day. Who have we got? We have Hosea Burton saying he was nominated for saying, my cousin Tyson Fury is a clever man. He is the best man in Britain. All right, fair enough. Spencer Fearon was nominated by Simon Alevy. Apparently Spencer was on some show. I don't know if anybody saw this, but I didn't. It was called My Icon or something. And Spencer says, I've got kids coming up to me saying, I want to be like you because you're the knowledge.
What a self-righteous motherfucker. Aye.
I haven't even seen that one, but yeah, okay, Spencer. Joe Ringer's nominated.
Going to beat George Groves. He also said that as well.
Oh, did he? Right. Well, triple nomination because he's been nominated from Joe Ringer for saying Eubank Jr.'s output is similar to 1999 Shane Mosley and a prime Roy Jones Jr.
Oh, fuck.
At least he's not talking about Jersey Joe Walcott now.
Just load the 9mm in the gun, pull the slide back, cock the hammer, pull the trigger.
Advice from Andy there. Mikey Hugh has nominated all the cunts on the Sport Bible for their comments below Deontay Wilder against Dillian White. I did see those and they are pretty bad. Now, this was widely nominated to me. Sky Sports Boxing put out this tweet. Mini Tyson, Connor Ben is ready to remind New York what it was like when Mike Tyson was in town. Quite a few nominations for that one coming through. So Sky Sports Boxing, I think you might be odds on to win it. Kevin Mitchell has been nominated by Scotty for saying that Anthony Joshua should be the next Bond. Who's this? Nosmo King has nominated Eddie Hearn for his putrid IFL interview, saying Badu Jack has no power. Slaughter him on Sunday night, lads, he says. Well, that's the best I can do.
Eddie Hearn, casual spastic bastard.
I guess that non-puncher, feather-fisted guy just beat the shit out of DeGale and broke his teeth.
And cleverly as well. Harold Anand has nominated Billy O'Hearn. Billy O'Hearn has put a picture of Anthony Joshua in a suit as his iPhone background. Such a badass photo, I just had to, he says. Tommy Roosh has nominated Terry Flanagan. He says the lightweights are avoiding me. Okay. Who have we got? Chad Hogan has nominated Martin for the New Age Boxing Podcast, who is selling tickets to their live show. He's also nominated JD Boxing HQ. Scott B has nominated Javonta Davis. He's going the Adrian Broner route, Davis. He's put out a tweet saying, I might lick it if you let me. No further context on that one, boys, I don't think. I don't quite know what he's referring to.
Lickety.
Pretty much.
It's like Frank Warren trying to send him a private message to some woman.
That was a cracker, wasn't it? Ben North has nominated who is this? I'm not sure. Oh, the Catalyst. The Catalyst was live there at Groves against Cox last night, and he described round one between Cox and Groves as a feeling out round. What type of fights does he usually be watching if that was a feeling out round? The Catalyst nominated there. Boris has nominated Jamie Cox. I could handle his power, he said afterwards. You got KO'd, says Boris. Tony Bellew has been nominated for saying that the winner of Groves-Eubank doesn't really matter because they're going to eventually lose to Callum Smith anyway. Paul Smith got nominated. It was the commentator's curse, really. Many people would have seen this one. He was commentating on Charlo Lubin, and I think he said something like Lubin's doing okay or looking comfortable right at the very second he took that big shot and got completely starched. So an L for Mr. Paul Smith there. Matty Akins has been nominated by Simon Luckhurst. Rob Barnett has thrown in a nomination as well. Mick Doonan has nominated the whole of Next Big Pod. He says, can I put them all forward? For years, we've heard that the Charlos are shit and Lubin is a god. They're clueless. We're coming towards the end. Oh, we have come towards the end of all the ones I've got. Adam Smido's had enough. He's disappeared. Anybody else got any nominations?
Cali just for being absolutely MDMA'd, probably crack cocaine, heroin, and fucking, angel dust thrown for good measure there last night. He was fleeing out his tits.
He has a great time, doesn't he, Cali?
Oh, man. I went to party with that guy. I think it'd be a good laugh.
Good old Callie. I got sent one in early on Twitter early. I'm trying to bring it up now. William Taylor, for the commentator on COX. He has had hand trouble in the past. William says, yeah, knocking about all those women takes a toll on your body. Bit harsh. Marvelous Mendo as well sent in a good one. He said, nomination to the lads who go to boxing shows, stay in the bar until 20 minutes before the main bout, scream out Smido's favourite hits such as Sweet Caroline and Walking in a Winter Wonderland, then decide to kick off in the stands with whoever asks them to sit down or happens not to be supporters of their local football team. Worse still, making me miss the stoppage from Groves as I watch them going for the KO instead and make me lose my phone as I rush out of the venue immediately. Mendo is not happy. Any other nominations?
Yeah, I've got a couple.
Go on, Ozzy.
Let me find it now. It's in relation to the Dillian White, Robert Hellenius fight that was announced this morning.
Yes.
So JJ 338 on third. Sorry, JJ 300 380034. Awesome. Big Eddie Hearn comes great again. What a brilliant fight.
That's not a value of the week. That's a 100% valid statement.
That's because you're a Hellenius fan, for what I remember rightly, back in the day, Gabe, in the forum days.
Yeah, back a while, before he lost to Dell, and then got knocked out after sitting out for what, he was out for 2 years or something like that. It feels like.
Back Ozzy up. This is a guy that Eddie Hearn says that heavyweights across the planet are worried or scared of Dillian White, and he turns around and fights Robert Hellenius, who got knocked out of Jonathan Duhaupas in 6 rounds, motherfucker.
It's a garbage fight. It's utter garbage.
Hey, Hellenius is going to knock him out, so you should be at least happy for that.
No chance, mate. Hellenius is getting knocked out within 8 rounds.
Yeah.
I think this might go the distance. I wouldn't be that surprised.
Yeah, I think it's going to go the distance as well. What's your second one, Ozzy?
Ricky Cushion on Twitter, knocking Eddie about a £20 British card. He could have charged £50 for this, and I would pay for that. That's in relation to the Anthony Joshua card in a couple of weeks as well.
Oh dear. Any more, guys?
None for me.
Go on, Rob.
I have one for the great rapper, the Ghostface Killer, widely regarded as one of the top 10 best rappers of all time from the Wu-Tang Clan. Posted a picture on Instagram of him and Deontay Wilder and said, "Out with the champ, Deontay Wilder." So Ghostface is known for inventing his own slang, so good for him. We can have a look at that one.
Well done, Ghostface. Any from you, Dave?
Yeah, I got a couple. The commentary team on Showtime last night, the Arislandi Lara fight was so boring. After 3 rounds, I think, they started talking about other Cuban fighters from rival promotions, including Rigondeaux versus Lomachenko, which is a competitor. So it was kind of funny. They were forced to big up the opposition because Lara wasn't doing anything. Well, and Gautier was doing even less. Also, for the interpreter, Lara's interpreter, he called Terrell Gautier Gay Shaw. We want to give a lot of credit to Gay Shaw, he said. Also, I have one more here. Sorry, my mind is blank right now. I lost it. Carry on.
Blank mind from the hater. Right,
no. There it is. Erickson Lubin wearing the freaking Roman soldier outfit and coming in like some sort of chevalier or something, and then just getting iced immediately.
He left like Charles Martin, didn't they?
Yeah. I mean, I said before the fight, if he wins, I mean, then that'll just be like his gimmick. But if he loses, it's belly of the week material.
Yeah, don't come in wearing crowns, Dave, or Roman materials or anything like that. It just doesn't end well. Right, well, I know who I'm going for. I'm going for Sky Sports Boxing for saying Mini Tyson. Conor Benn is ready to remind New York what it was like when Mike Tyson was in town.
That's good. I'd like to also put in there Cally Serling for saying he's going to put Groves-Eubank into a stadium in January, February time. Is he fucking insane? You need to put undersoil heat on the fucking. You need to bring in vitamin B rays and all that sort of stuff. But I like that one about Conor Benn. That's fucking insane. I'm going to go for that one as well.
Callie's all right though. He won't be feeling the cold, Andy.
Aye, when he's
Until he wakes up the next morning or something with frostbite.
especially when he's fucking got a headache after like fucking 16 grams of pure, you know. So
Right, that's 2 for Sky Sports. Then for the Conor Benn Mike Tyson comparison, Hater, who you going for?
I'm going for the same Sky Sports. They just try to outdo themselves every week.
Yeah, it's a self-troll, is it? Self-fulfilling prophecy. Donny, who you going for? Donny. I think we might have lost Donny. Andy's gone for Sky Sports. Gabe, who's your pick this week?
Mini Tyson, and honorable mention to the guy that called Hellenius Abellu of the week.
Fair enough. Ozzy, who are you going for?
Yeah, Mini Tyson.
And finally, Rob.
Yeah, I think it's going to be unanimous. If Conor Benn wants to take on the Tyson mantle, he has to learn how to, say, fornicate with women real in an intimidating fashion like Tyson. Like, fornicate with women. I just want to look at them. I just want to fornicate with them. You know, he's not getting any juice from me until he can do that.
I was thinking this week, like Cam Newton recently got the media all riled because he laughed at, like, that a woman was talking about routes in football or something. I was thinking, like, what if Mike Tyson was around today? The social justice culture would react to this. I usually don't do interviews with women unless we're fornicating.
If he slayed, he wouldn't make a penny. If he was around today.
You love me, faggot.
Good old Mike, good old Mike. Yeah, that's us finished, guys. I'm going to throw one final question out before we do, because it was one of the only other questions we got from Victoria Ansel. I'm going to hit you with this one, Gabe, if you don't mind. Victoria asks, last week there was a question that asked, which division would you choose for the next World Boxing Super Series? My question is, which division has the least depth in your opinions, and therefore, Gabe, would make the shittest division for the World Super Series boxing tournament? So which division would you choose to have the worst World Boxing Super Series?
Minimum weight?
Because we don't know any of the names.
I couldn't tell you a single fucking person in that division right now.
casual, absolute casual.
I just haven't seen anybody there in a long time, and I haven't even seen any recognized minimum weight fights on streams and such in a long time. So I mean, not for a lack of just ignoring them, but I don't know where they've been. That's actually a pretty good question. Let's say that one, and then
I'm thinking maybe super featherweight. You know. I don't think there's that many great names to get 8 fighters out of it.
Yeah, mate. Well, who would you put in there?
Well, you got Bichelt, Corrales. You got Loma, I know that. I mean, I suppose if Rigondeaux's coming up, you could include him. Who'd be on that, though? You're looking at the likes of Tevin Farmer, aren't you?
Gervonta Davis.
Farmer got shot.
Oh, yeah, Farmer got
The whole
shot.
tournament around that
Yeah.
division.
Right, no, Davis.
Not like a really well recognized tournament.
Yeah, mate. Yeah, okay, fair enough. Maybe that was a bad call. Any others?
Heavyweight.
140.
The worst, Andy? What would be the worst, least depth division to pick for the WBSS is the question?
I've got to be honest with Gabe, actually. Minimum weight's probably like the one. You know, there's a lot of guys there people have never watched before and stuff like that, but yeah, probably like 105, between 105, 108, and probably to another degree, maybe 168 as well. Really beginning to thin out badly. I
was mentioning super feather from the worst of the bunch, but no, you're right. There are quite a few names there, so I'll withdraw that statement. Minimum weight, yeah, I don't really know any of them. So you've got Wanheng Menayothin, Thamanoon Neomtrong, Hiroto Kayaguchi, and Ryuya Yamanaka. Don't know anything about any of them, to be honest. I think we've come to the end, guys, when I'm naming these long-winded Thai fighter names. Rob Kelly's gone. Thanks for Rob for jumping on. Thanks for Adam Smith as well. He has also left. Matti Digialanardo, former host, 5 years on, is returning to the pod. Always good to hear from him. Donny, I think, has laid and died somewhere in the corner with his headset still attached to his head.
Yay!
Hopefully someone will find him and bury him. Dave Loback was on, thanks to Dave. Andy Patterson as well. You heard Whoop in there, Gabe, and also great to have Ozzie Smith on with us. If I've forgotten anybody, then apologies. The Guru Tommy Allen's coming on at 8:30, so we'll wait for him to appear. And in the meantime, we'll catch you all next week, guys. Thanks very much for listening. Bye.